It all starts with this albino sucker in a cave swinging a pickaxe saying he finally found what he wanted. Turns out what he found was paint. He looks at the little creature on his shoulder and thanks Nero, saying it was thanks to him that he managed to find it. This time, the Pioneers Corporation is probably going to accept him. He walks out of the cave and from far away sees a city with this colorful glow shining in the middle. There's a parade going on packed with people, and right in the middle of it, the colorful squad is walking by. A woman says to her husband, "Look, babe, those colorful ones are so amazing. If that little red one asked me to, I'd leave you." The husband says he'd leave her too, because people like them deserve the title they have. They shine so much, and that's what keeps the city protected. But where there's light, there are shadows. And now we're in the Shadow District itself, where they're doing the approval test to enter the Pioneers Corporation. Except our poor albino is getting slammed onto the ground, and a bunch of guys are telling him he's already been warned that this isn't a place for him. The protagonist shows his paint. Like, come on, he brought his souvenir, he's qualified. But the red-haired guy says it looks like he's gonna have to draw it out so the idiot understands. He's filthy, with no color at all, straight-up prejudice against albinos. And the guy says everyone in this world is born with a defined role. But there are idiots like him who pretend they don't know their place, so he'd better pay attention. The colorless bastard. Red flames flare up around him and the guy says, "Pioneer? You're filthy. Only the chosen can be one." Little do they know that white is the combination of all colors. Is that a spoiler? No idea. But the guy keeps going, saying the weak don't survive in the black lands. Outside the city, everything is swallowed by darkness. You can't see anything and there are no colors. Out there, those colorless creatures destroy everything, and only them, the pioneers, can risk their lives searching for treasures and resources. They're putting their lives on the line for humanity's future. Basically, they're heroes. And for someone with the filthy talent the kid has, becoming a hero is impossible. Someone colorless like him should shut up and do what he was born to do. Nothing. And then they shut the gate on him. Nero looks all sad inside his shirt. The protagonist pets him. "It's okay, Nero. There are plenty of places we can go. I'm used to this. I promise you I'm gonna be the greatest colorist of all time. Now get back in there. Hide. They're gonna look somewhere else. Maybe someone will accept them." While he's saying that, there's a little green guy watching from the sidelines. Later, the protagonist tries a bunch of places but crosses them all off. Nobody accepts him. He's lost count of how many places he's tried today, until he suddenly goes into Mary's shop. He walks in like, "Hey Mary, what's up?" She welcomes Kay back and says, "Look at that. He's got an albino at home." Then she adds that judging by his face, it went wrong again. He says, "Well, kind of." She says they don't know how to recognize talent, and he's probably stronger than a lot of pioneers. He says it doesn't matter because nobody accepts him since he's colorless. She insists that he can go into the Black Lands without any problem, so his skills are already proven. But Kay says it's only possible because Nero helps him. Then he taps the jar of blue paint and asks if she wants to buy the stuff. She says yes, she'll pay him really well for it. She starts pouring the paint into a tube, saying it's getting hard. The price keeps going up, mixing red and blue. And the protagonist says, yeah, things are hard for him too because no corporation will take him. Mary asks, "Did you think about what I told you before?" He starts to say that place seems like something, but she cuts him off and says he has to try everything. Then she slaps a recruitment notice on the table, Aurora Class S Pioneers. He looks at it thinking there's no way. He can't even pass rank C or rank E tests, so he didn't even want to sign up for that. Mary says it's an incredible chance and he should try. The people there have more talent and maybe they'll recognize what he can do. He talks about how he's wanted to be a colorist since he was a kid, and she always swore she'd support him no matter what he decided. He gives this crooked little smile and says, well, he can't waste even a second then. He grabs the paper and leaves, saying he's going to check out this Aurora Pioneers group. Mary wishes him good luck. The protagonist walks through the city, thinking that first he needs to prepare better, but Nero is trembling inside his clothes, and the protagonist asks what's wrong. That little green guy had set up an attack. He sends a wave at the protagonist's back. It hits, but kind of glances off to the side. The other idiot next to him says the loser got lucky dodging, colorless, and the green one says, whatever. He's gonna die anyway. Nobody cares if a colorless person dies. Nero is crying and won't even look at him, and the protagonist tells him to run. Then we cut to a paint disposal area. The protagonist opens his eyes confused, and the guy asks if he finally woke up. It's a shame this happened, because now he's going to be thrown in there alive. That's what happens when you mix countless paints. Basically a residue that's extremely lethal to humans, which makes it perfect for getting rid of bodies. Kay still doesn't get it. Who is this guy and why is he doing this? The green one says he took a look at the kid and was shocked he showed up with a treasure like that in the Shadow District. A creature smart enough to follow a human, and we see he kidnapped Nero. Like, no, you don't do that. The protagonist snaps awake for real and goes after them. He's punching the guy's arm, yelling for him to let Nero go. But the green one just says a colorless person screaming is pathetic. He's gonna sell the creature on the black market and make a fortune. It's way too good and rare for a filthy colorless person like him. Kay thinks he let his guard down. He never cared about the discrimination and insults, but he didn't want to lose Nero because of it. He's about to tell the guy to stop messing around and drop him, when the green one suddenly feels something weird like his energy or something is being drained. He lets go right away, saying it's an awful feeling, and the kid falls into the liquid. The green one says this is a damn waste of time, and his friend goes, it's fine, we handled it. Let's go to the black market, sell this thing and get rich. Now it clicks. The kid, the king of draining, fell into a gigantic tank of paint. He submerged, telling himself he has to save Nero, but his body won't respond. How did it end up like this? He still had a promise to keep. A voice calls to Kay and asks why he's just standing there, why he isn't reacting. He gets confused and asks who's talking, but the voice tells him to accept it. He has to push past this and do what he can. He can't end like this. He has to save Nero and accept his true color. He goes full dark as the voice tells him to reclaim his true color. A tornado of black paint starts gathering in his hand and moves toward him. This black and white version of him until suddenly he finds himself in some kind of other place, staring at his own hand, not understanding what's happening. He was inside that paint, and after that he doesn't remember anything. In that moment, he doesn't even know exactly who he is. Then he looks up and sees a dim blue one and a tired green one, and inside a half-open cage, Nero, bright and colorful, crying. Instantly, the protagonist thinks, that's it, I have to save Nero. Suddenly, right in front of them, a pillar of black energy, black paint shoots up, and they freak out. In the blink of an eye, the entire reservoir is emptied. The protagonist is there, total blackout, and the guy says it can't be. This has to be some kind of creature. And right then, a massive paint hand comes at them. Next chapter starts with everything destroyed. An old man says he saw it with his own eyes. A gigantic hand appeared out of nowhere and made a huge hole. We see the green guy, but now he's been albinoed, completely white. And the red-haired guy says, good, at least only those guys were affected. The purple-haired girl says they were rank B pioneers with a pretty mediocre reputation. She just doesn't understand what happened for them to end up with no color at all. He says that doesn't matter right now. They need to figure out what creature showed up in the city. Then an army guy comes running, calling for the colorists. He says it's an honor to meet them. He's the regional supervisor, and what brought them there is the Shadow District. The red-haired one tells him not to worry. He's just there to investigate the creature that did this. He asks where it happened. The guy leads them down the path, and now they're standing in front of a pile of rubble. Seeing that black paint dripping, they're sure those are signs that something passed through. She mentions reports that have been popping up about huge things, but showing up in the middle of the city is strange. Normally the ones you see like that are small and harmless. She's sure it's a new variant. The red-haired one says they can't jump to conclusions. First they have to find what did it, which is obviously going to be hard, because it looks like it ran far away. Scene changes to someone breathing with difficulty, collapsed on the asphalt. Nero is tugging at his black hair, and then he suddenly gets up. The albino kid is gone. They painted him. The protagonist wants to know what happened. He's sure those bastards threw him into that pit. He starts remembering falling, absorbing the paint. He looks at his hand, not sure if he did that. Seeing his hair, he notices it's black. But how is that possible? And also, where is he that it's so dark? He asks Nero for help, and Nero suddenly hops, spins, lights up, and reveals he's surrounded by creatures on all sides. The protagonist immediately realizes he's in the middle of the Blacklands, a region only accessible to pioneers above rank B. Strangely, all the creatures are gathering around him. He tells Nero they have to get out of there, and he takes off running. A creature lunges to bite him. Nero flashes, they slip past. They start climbing and sprinting through the area. But the protagonist feels weird. His body feels insanely good. He's running with everything he's got and doesn't feel tired at all. He's jumping higher, moving faster, full of energy. Another creature tries to bite from the side. He thinks he's dead, throws up his arm to block, but the creature breaks its teeth, biting his arm and runs away. Kay just stands there thinking, what was that? It bit him and ran? That kind of resistance to fatal blows in theory was the power of color. Nero flashes again and they see a giant cyclops staring at him. He wonders what one of the forest's biggest predators is doing there. Before he can figure it out, he gets blasted in the middle like a bazooka hit him and he's thrown far away. Nero tells him to get up and he's smashed into the wood, saying that was close. But for some reason he smiles, with this strange feeling that he can win. He finally got the color he wanted so badly. Now everything is different. He doesn't even need to run anymore. He just has to remember that feeling from when he fell into the reservoir. Flashbacks hit, the black energy wraps around his body again and he goes full dark mode. Honestly, the kid has an aura. The Cyclops roars and comes in to smash him, but he plants his foot, clenches his fist, and punches straight through. So hard it feels like the whole forest moves with it. Then the protagonist opens his eyes, shocked because he's seeing the entire world in colors, something he didn't even know existed. He loses his balance and falls back to the ground. Then he realizes his color is kind of running out. Looks like the more he uses it, the more it gets drained. He tells himself this pace won't work, until that strange voice says the prey is right in front of him. All he has to do is devour it. If he doesn't want to die, he just needs to reach out his hand. When Kay touches the creature's body, everything suddenly starts getting absorbed into him. Nero stares, kind of scared. The energy expands through the forest, and when it returns to him, he's recovered. He really is the king of draining. Next chapter, we're in Mary's workshop. She glances to the side and welcomes this weird person standing there. Hey, what brings you here, sir? You looking for something specific? But the person walks closer without saying anything. And she goes, sir, you look really suspicious. If you come any closer, you're getting a screwdriver to the head. The protagonist jumps, she backs off, and then he starts pulling his hood down, telling her to calm down because it's him. She's standing there totally confused until it finally clicks, and she asks what happened to Kay's face. A little later, she's still shaking, tools in hand, saying she's never gonna forgive those damn miserable coloreds. The protagonist says it's fine, he already got revenge. He drained them until they turned pale. but she fires back that he vanished out of nowhere. She'd been worried something like that might have happened. Still, she's happy he's okay, because surviving after falling into that warehouse and still ending up with a color is basically unbelievable. On top of that, he got black, the color of creatures and monsters, so people are probably going to assume he's evil. This story's kind of racist, isn't it? The protagonist says that's in the past. He's a colored now. He's going to put all that aside and focus on taking the entrance exam for the Pioneer Corporation. He only stopped by her shop because he wants to borrow some clothes and gear, and he promises he'll return it. She laughs and says, yeah, he said that a whole bunch of times, but fine, she'll treat it like an investment. She tells him she's got the perfect item that matches him. Let's see. We're getting to the day of the color test. Better watch out because the Drainer kid is about to show up. The blue-haired guy asks how many people came. The other one, the tired green-haired guy, says there are a lot this year. But that's normal. This competition is always like that. 83 says, damn, I never thought I'd actually take the big test. And the red-haired kid says he's anxious too. Joining the Pioneer Corporation of the Tomb was everyone's dream. Out of all of them, that was the corporation taking the most territory in the Black Lands, packed with S-ranks and a bunch of insane colorists. They're the hope of Bright City. The problem is, looking up front, there are tons of talented people with multiple colors. Like that cyan girl, her style is nice. And they're annoyed because even the rookies this year, like the pink-haired kid, are already super colorful. But the one who clearly stands out the most is him, the green swordsman, Gale. Everyone already knows this guy basically has a free pass into the company. They say he can wipe out countless creatures all by himself. The only downside is he's got a violent streak and got kicked out of his last corporation, which is why he ended up here. 18-3 says, I'm not scared. Those guys are nothing. Give me a little training and I'll win easy. The red-haired kid goes, all right then, go over there and hit him right now. He's waiting. Gale's standing there bored, saying this test is trash. He was hoping to see at least one S rank, but nobody here stands out, until he glances to the side and spots the cyan girl. Me and Gale have similar interests. I agree. She's interesting. And he's eager to see how she stands out and how she reacts. He starts walking over with that big hand like he's about to grab someone by the head, when suddenly the loudspeaker announces that entry into the Pioneers of Dawn is starting now. Then the blonde guy shows up, total Naruto vibe. They say he played a huge role in the last large-scale attack. And with this many colorists showing up today, recruitment is going to be serious. Everyone's saying it's crazy seeing an S rank up close. He's on a whole different level. The blonde guy greets everyone and says anybody on his team needs to have a goal. Could be money, power, honor, could be women. He says it doesn't matter. In the end, you need skill to get what you want. And they only want the skill of people who actually get what they want. He wants the hungry ones. Basically, if you're strong, nothing else matters. And that's exactly why the first test is a tournament, because the most important skill for a pioneer is combat. Out there, it's survival of the strongest. So today they have to prove they're ready. Step up. Number 126 and 286. People start thinking, damn, 286 is screwed, getting a 1v1 like that right away. But Gale is smiling, totally relieved. He'll get attention in the very first match, except he runs straight into the hooded kid. Gale's confused. Who's this weird kid? He's got this strange hood, awful posture, looks weak, so whatever. Gale draws his sword. Good thing you showed up. I was bored and I'm done holding back. Everyone's like, holy crap, look at his sword, huge and shiny. Then he multiplies the sword. The crowd loses it, saying that's an insane ability to master at his age. He really was a genius. Gale asks if the kid can block it, because if not, he's getting cut in half. He charges our boy and swings and gets a fist straight to the face. He slams into the wall like a total mess. Everyone's stunned. The idiot's already missing teeth. 5 seconds. That's all it took. Meanwhile, the protagonist is shaking out his arm like, he caught me off guard rushing in like that. But the crowd is frozen. Wait, am I seeing this right? He has black hair. That's the color of creatures. The blonde guy and the cyan girl are like, oh my god, I've never seen that. Everyone's losing it. How did Gale, the most talented one this year, get beaten by someone with the monster's color? Kay's standing there acting like he has no idea why they're reacting like this. Yeah, sure you don't. Next chapter starts with even more chaos. The red-haired guy is throwing rocks, yelling at him to stay back. But the protagonist just walks forward, tanking everything without even caring. Another punch, another win, another punch, another win, another punch, another win. The blonde guy watching from above is shocked, while people behind him say that kid looks weirdly promising, and he's the first person ever to have the black color. Before rumors spread, they should recruit him. Then someone walks up saying, the day's getting interesting. It's the leader of the red team. Is his name Red? No idea. Maybe his name really is Red. He asks about the exam and everyone wants to know what he's doing there. He says he's just taking a look. People keep pushing, saying, doesn't he have a mission to handle? Red tells them not to worry. That thing already gave him a headache, but he still has time to watch this. So anyone here worth recruiting? The woman on the left says yes, someone's getting amazing results, and she's not talking about the young lady from the Cyan family. She means someone unique. Red looks over and immediately goes, hold on, Black? The guy says yes. This kid beat one of the favorites and his results are ridiculous. Basically, he's already passed. The blue-haired woman asks if it's that boy, but she doesn't even finish, and Red just says yes. A new color showing up right after that incident is really suspicious, but for now they should just observe. Everyone who sees the kid thinks the same thing. With strength like that, he's guaranteed to become a pioneer. The protagonist knows he still has to be careful. If he overuses this power, he'll lose his color, and then it's over. Then in front of him, there's a leftover colored pillar, and Cyan number 17 is declared the winner. She's Cyan, her power is ice, and she uses a sword. What a combo. Everyone says that family is always impressive. Exactly what you'd expect from the daughter of a prestigious house. She walks down from the stage, passes by the protagonist, glances at him, and he pretends he didn't notice. As soon as she turns and walks away, he looks back at her. A while later, the blonde guy thanks everyone for their effort. Since they're running behind schedule, they're moving on to the next test. Anyone who failed can go home and try again next time. The low-opacity ones, poor things, got beat up and have to leave. Right when the blonde guy is about to announce the next test, Red tells him to wait a second and says he'll be running this one. The crowd is stunned. It's the famous colorist Red, one of the strongest people in Bright City, known for reclaiming parts of the Blacklands and breaking tons of records. They say his power is so overwhelming, people are scared to go on missions with him. The blonde guy asks if he's sure he'll get yelled at by the captain. Red says he doesn't care, he'll get yelled at either way. Then he says the test is simple, you just have to survive it. Suddenly his aura expands and forms a bunch of circles around everyone. He says he's recreating the environment of a region he's been to. They better get ready because it's about to get really hot. The Blacklands are full of extreme environments where humans can barely survive. They should be grateful this is a simple test. Just endure it and you pass. But if you can't endure it, that means you never had what it takes anyway. Random applicants are already suffering, saying their skin feels like it's burning. Others are clawing around trying to get out, saying they can't take it. The blonde guy thinks that, like always, people have been saying Red is getting weaker, but he's still as strong as ever. Covering this many people in a controlled way shows how absurd he is. He really reached the top. But then, way in the back, one of the spheres starts freezing over, then shatters, and Cyan is standing there totally calm. Red says she did pretty well. That girl really can be called a prodigy. But he wants to know where's the other kid. He's standing there somehow enduring it. But Red finds it strange. The boy isn't breaking the barrier. Red wasn't expecting much, so he figures that's that. Inside, Kami is panicking, trying to figure out what to do. He's screwed. He used up too much color in the earlier fights, and if he'd known the test would be like this, he would have held back. The problem is, the more he tries to endure, the more his mana gets drained. His color is fading, and if he turns albino in front of everyone, he's done for. They'll drag him to a lab. He reaches the obvious conclusion. He needs to drain, absorb something. Then he realizes, wait, the barrier I'm inside is made of colors, so in theory it should be possible. Even though he doesn't know the limits of this absorption ability, there's no time to overthink it. He decides to find out by trying, and the absorption starts immediately. And not only his barrier, everyone's barrier starts getting pulled in. Red and the blonde guy are staring, not understanding what's happening. Red lets out an awkward laugh and says they've got a real lunatic here this time. The protagonist realizes he messed up. There's no barrier left on anyone. Damn it, that wasn't supposed to happen. Now he's drawn way too much attention. Now we get Cyan's perspective in the next chapter. She says, this exam meant everything to me. I wanted to prove my strength, the strength I trained for my family. But the appearance of this new color was unprecedented. He looked weak, but he made me feel this strange anxiety. I was always raised to be the best. All right, enough. She didn't want to fall behind anyone, and she also couldn't risk upsetting her sister. But that boy K was strangely strong. She knows she can't guarantee a win even if she fights seriously. There's something she can't explain, some kind of raw force. She stares thinking that no matter what he is, next time it won't go like this. She's upset because he got more attention. And Red is already there, saying, so you've got the power of the black color. That aura, you're draining everyone. Yes, he actually says draining. That's not me making a joke. Red says it to the kid. And now he's extremely eager to learn more about this color. The protagonist asks about the test. Red says at this level he passes easily. Apparently. K, all innocent, thinks, wow, yeah, getting attention helped me. Sure, just get ready for what comes next. From above, the blonde guy tells Red to stand down, and Red tells him to stop yelling. This kid already passed. The blonde guy apologizes to everyone. The exam got interrupted, but it'll continue. Except for number 17 who broke the barrier. Everyone will have to do an extra test. Cyan just keeps staring as the boy gets taken into an alley. A while later, outside, Red tells his friend to wait there. They'll be right back. And that's when we see they're back at the place from the day the protagonist fell into the paint bucket. Red says, ugly little place, huh? Something weird happened here. Not long ago, 2 pioneers had their colors drained and turned albino. First time that ever happened, and according to witnesses, they said they saw a strange, gigantic creature. And right after all that, the first person with black shows up. What a coincidence, huh? Especially one with the power to absorb other colors, an ability that's pretty unusual. K gets awkward and he realizes it. This guy knew from the start, the first option would be to run, but with how strong this guy is, that's impossible. He was the kind of person even heroes called a hero. Then Red says he was just testing the kid, but when the kid reacts that sincerely, it kind of ruins the fun. His job is just to figure out what happened, but he's way more interested in the kid's ability, whether it's the black color or that suction absorption power he's never seen before. Color powers sound simple, but the truth is most of them don't mix. His weirdly seems to ignore all the rules, and judging by what happened during the exam, you can't even control it properly, since it started sucking up everything around you. The protagonist goes, yeah, that, and tries to explain, but the guy says, it's fine. It was just a test, but now I want to find out how strong your power is, and how it works. He points his hand and tells the kid to absorb. Hun? The protagonist's like, hold on, drain you? Red says, kid, it's not like that, don't worry, just try. The protagonist hesitates. This guy shows up out of nowhere and tells him to drain him. What is that supposed to mean? Meanwhile, Red is thinking he needs to understand this sinister force that consumes everything. Letting a dangerous ability like that run loose is completely unacceptable. Something like that could shake Bright City to its core. And even if people don't know it, humanoid creatures do exist. And before K turns out to be one, they might have to deal with him right there. So the protagonist grabs his hand and says, fine, he'll try. But if something goes wrong, it's not his fault. Then the absorption starts, Red's energy begins flowing into the kid. But the protagonist feels this weird heat like an explosion of flames inside him. This isn't working. He asks him to stop, saying he can't control it. It felt like boiling lava inside his body. That power was insane. That's why they called this guy a hero. Red watches him and thinks this kid keeps absorbing non-stop, like he's starving. Still, maybe because he's immature, someone strong like me can resist the absorption. But this is clearly dangerous for most people. I want to know how these absorbed colors would be used. Suddenly, a red aura appears behind the protagonist. Expanding, Red lets go of his hand and sees that half the kid's body is kind of transforming. Red thinks that if he didn't know what this was, he'd think it was a creature. But now he's sure this kid caused the incident. He has to find out who he is. But first he has to put out this fire. And for that, unfortunately, the kid has to be subdued. The protagonist is shaking, almost in agony, saying such an intense color. I'm transmuting powers. It's so hot. At the same time, it's like there's a devil's voice talking to him, telling him to shut up. He's fighting against himself until the energy finally breaks apart. Red is impressed and asks if he really suppressed that power. The protagonist is completely out of breath. For a second, he thought he was going to die. Why did he freak out like that out of nowhere? And right in front of a colorist who already thinks he's suspicious as hell. He knows he has to investigate his power as fast as possible. He tries to explain, I got caught off guard because what I absorbed was way too strong, but Red says it was way too fun. The protagonist doesn't get this guy. Red scratches his chin and says, enough testing. You've probably noticed, but I'm the one in charge of solving the incident that happened here. Unfortunately, I have to find the culprit. And now, right in front of me, I've got the perfect suspect. You should know there are way more people watching this case than you think, and the moment your ability starts leaking, you'll be an easy target. Even if it was a breakout on the outskirts, it's still going to cost hundreds of millions because of the ink disposal. Obviously, leadership will decide your power is dangerous, you won't have the money to pay, and in the worst case, you'll be turned into a lab rat. K is furious. They've put him in a terrible situation, and the worst part is he's a victim too. How is he supposed to get out of this? Red says, but imagine if you were my student. Think I'd help you? Right away, the protagonist goes, oh, my teacher. Okay, I'm in your hands. And this Red, after the kid did that absorption, wants him at his side. Epstein Red, no way. This has to be on purpose. Red says, you know you'll have to do a few favors in return. Can you handle that? The protagonist says yes, he'll do anything Red wants. Red stares back and asks, you sure? Anything? Okay. Next chapter, we see a little black mouse, kind of scared, running as a tank rolls by. The protagonist is looking out through the glass, saying he's never seen anything this far out before. Looks like it's his first expedition as a pioneer. The green one calls out to the black-haired kid and tells him to sit down already and stop making everyone nervous. The protagonist looks to the side and sees it's Gale and Ciano, and he thinks pioneer work is exactly what he expected, and now all of them are on the same team. Technically, did he get what he wanted? We rewind a bit to when K asks Red if he's going to take part in the exploration. Red says he has to go to a strangely unexplored place, and he might need the kid's help. Seeing K hesitate, he tells him not to make that face. They won't be alone, so there's nothing to worry about. All the new recruits are going to participate anyway, so he's just one of them. The corporation will announce the plan soon, and the details will come later. He just shouldn't be late. He needs to show up where they told him to. The protagonist thinks that as soon as he got on board, those two were already waiting. The interference Red caused messed up the whole exam, and to get another chance, they tried again. That's how the green one got a second attempt. And it looks like Ellie, the cyan one, personally asked to be part of Red's squad. Gale says he can't believe it. He got humiliated because of a filthy kid like that. He's sure what happened is he let his guard down. The kid better know that next time he won't be that lucky. When this expedition is over, he's going to hunt K down. He's only not killing him now because Miss Levian is right there behind them. Ellie tells him to forget it. He'd lose again anyway. He's wasting his breath on something pointless because K is clearly way above his level. The green one, furious, asks what she's talking about, while the protagonist notices she seems to handle this guy pretty well. Then suddenly she says she's the one who's going to fight K first. The protagonist is shocked. He thought she was going to protect him. She says they exchanged some great looks earlier and agreed on it. The protagonist doesn't remember doing that, and she immediately tells Gale to shut it and stay quiet, because he lost and should wait his turn. The two of them are basically glaring at each other, while the protagonist wonders why nobody told him any of this. Meanwhile, the truck keeps moving farther away from the city. Then they stop at this place that looks like a ship. Everyone gets out, and the protagonist realizes it's the Aurora Pioneers outpost. When he used to go to the Black Lands, he always prepared alone, so he had no idea there were actually corporations and tons of people working together out here. Then Mary, the albino girl, smacks him in the face and asks what he's thinking so hard about. He's surprised, and she says of course she'd be there for his first mission. Even Nero is there. The little guy jumps into his lap. He thanks her for taking care of him, and she says it's nothing. He's family. Besides, now that he's on the corporation expedition, it's an incredible opportunity for both of them. Her abilities will be more useful out there, so it'll be great for her to get experience. Someone with a megaphone interrupts, saying the meeting is started. As planned, they're going into the Black Lands. The protagonist hands Nero back to Mary, telling her to watch him, and she asks him not to do anything crazy. He just waves and says he'll talk to her later. But then Nero wiggles free, runs toward the protagonist, and drops into his shadow. Mary is surprised and calls out to Kay, but he's already gone, swallowed up in the crowd, and she can only hope it won't be a problem. Everyone's gathered in front of the entrance, with someone telling them to get ready because they're about to enter the Black Lands. Miss Orange says safety comes first. Area 21 has reports of dangerous, unknown creatures. It's also where they found the corpse of an A-rank monster, so it's extremely dangerous. Someone calls for Miss Arancia and warns her that Red is taking the new recruits somewhere else. They left formation without permission. She's startled and asks if that's serious. The person says yes. Now that he's gone, she's in charge of the site. Arancia scratches her head, saying that guy is trouble every single time. She just hopes that damn senior brings the rookies back safely. Meanwhile, in another part of the cave, the trio is moving along with the instructor, and someone comments, "Boss, the team's going somewhere else, aren't they? Is this safe?" Red explains that their objective today is different. Kay hesitates and says, "Okay, but there are a lot of rookies here." Then he looks back too, wondering why those two came along. Red said he was only taking him. Gale tells him to shut up, saying they're embarrassed to be behind him, while Tabby says there's no way she'd miss the chance to train with Red. But the instructor warns them he's not planning to train anyone here. He's just going to make sure nobody dies. They need to remember they're a team and everyone has to carry their weight. With that, the team moves out. Right after that, they're all killing the first creatures. Chano swings her sword and pierces a beast, thinking, so this is the Black Lands. The place is really suffocating, and creatures don't stop showing up. The pace here is completely different from training. She has to watch her energy because if she wastes it, she'll end up with nothing. Looking at the protagonist, she thinks she needs to move smart. The last thing she wants is to end up behind Kay. Then she sees him crushing a creature with his hand, calls out to him and asks why he doesn't use a spoits. Even in the entrance test, basically that weapon with a slot to store ink. He says he doesn't use one because he doesn't have one. It was too expensive, he didn't have the money, so he decided to pass the test without it. Gale and the other one are shocked. That's exactly it. The spoit is a required weapon for pioneers to fight creatures. To defeat monsters, you mix colors inside the spoit, creating different effects. But this kid is killing monsters with his bare hand. Gale is shaking with rage. He really got beaten by someone who doesn't even have a spoit, and he didn't even scratch him. One day, he's going to crush Kay with his own hand. Red, seeing all this, is thrilled. Nothing better than a few geniuses together to create a little tension. Things are going to get interesting. He tells them to keep moving. They're almost at the place he wants. Next scene, there are a bunch of dead monsters on the ground. Red says they need to take a quick break. They should know they've barely started, so they shouldn't let their guard down. 10 minutes of rest, then they're heading out again. Gale is holding a vial, saying he can't believe he's already used up so much color. Kay glances over and sees it's the famous personal ink, a refined item that restores a person's energy, basically essential for pioneers. Since it's custom-made to match someone's exact color, it's insanely expensive, and those idiots are chugging it like it's nothing. He's jealous of rich people, but anyway, he doesn't need it. Then Ellie looks over and asks what he's doing. Kay touches a corpse, starts absorbing, and says, "All right, I'm fully recovered." The two of them look confused, asking if he's really okay. He says yes, he's done it plenty of times. Relax. Then it's like, wait, he's absorbing creatures and nothing's happening? Gale is trying to understand how the kid can go through something like that without even blinking. But then Red cuts them off and says, "All right, break's over, let's go, we're here." And then we see this place with a strange black orb. Everyone wants to know what it is. Red says it's the reason they came all the way here. He conjures a flame in his hand, attacks the orb, and nothing happens. Then he says, well, as you can see, you can't break this thing with brute force. It looks like it absorbs attacks and gets even tougher. And that whole absorption thing makes him think of Kay. That's why he had this gut feeling that maybe the Cade's power could get rid of that barrier. As far as he knows, inside the barrier there's a path leading to some ruins, and in those ruins they're supposed to find the mission target, an item known as the Stella Fragment. The protagonist is surprised when he hears that, while the others are like, wait, I've never heard of that, what even is it? Kay gets dead serious, and Red says, it's something the Shining City is desperate to find. I'll explain later. But for now, let's get rid of the barrier. Kay's like, alright then, steps up, reaches out his hand, activates that big suction thing, and the whole sphere starts getting pulled in. Red's impressed it's actually working. The barrier is fading. He says, Kay, that power of yours is going to be really useful. But then the entire ground starts shaking. Gale's trying to figure out what's going on. This looks like it's taking way more force than he expected. And with all that noise, it's going to draw other creatures in. Sure enough, the whole place goes crazy. In the blink of an eye, they're surrounded by monsters. Ellie, already annoyed, says it's Kay's fault. The whole crowd showed up. But now they don't have a choice. Red just tells them to protect the kid while he removes the barrier. They're supposed to take down everything around them. Gale charges in, cutting things down. Kayano throws out ice while Red watches, thinking he might have to step in, but those two don't need him. This year is impressive. The rookies are good enough to handle themselves. He loves it when he doesn't have to do anything. But Kay is feeling something weird. He can feel a power similar to his coming from the barrier. At the same time he wants to absorb it, he also feels like if he loses focus for even a second, it'll steal his color. It's an absorption tug-of-war, but he's sure he's better at it, and the barrier breaks apart. And the only thing left is a hole, which is strange, because the guy said there'd be an entrance to the ruins. Kay tells Red he removed the barrier, and Red praises him, saying his instincts were right. He calls out to the group that the barrier is down and everyone should stay close. They don't need to kill every monster, but then what he's saying gets cut off by something strange. He flinches, there's a red slash, he grabs two of them by the collar and throws them away, and Gale asks what the hell that was. In an instant, the ground is completely cracked. Red says things were going way too smoothly. They'd gotten a report about something dangerous in this region, but apparently it's the worst it could be. There's someone coming from the back, kind of human. Red comments they don't have time to mess around. The figure is pale, half monster, covered in weapons. Red tells everyone to listen. They're going into the ruins right now, and they're going to work together to find the Stella fragment. Does he trust they can do it? The protagonist asks if it's really just them, and Red shoves him in like, yep, go. The three of them fall, calling for the boss, while he stays up there face to face with the final boss. The protagonist finds himself in the middle of emptiness with a strange pain. He turns on the lamp, wondering if this is the ruins, and then he sees it looks more like a completely destroyed city. He's confused. How can something like this exist underground? And it's dark as hell, so he needs to find some kind of light source. Then he sees Gale and Ellie nearby, and Ellie says, well, we're screwed. We're stuck in this weird place. Gale adds that everyone's basically lost. What are they supposed to do? The place is way bigger than he expected. Still, he's impressed. These are clearly signs of some other civilization. The problem is they have to find this Stella fragment without even knowing what it is. The protagonist thinks Gale isn't wrong. This could take forever. If Nero were here, he could help. And right then Nero shows up, nudging his foot. The protagonist is shocked, wondering how he even got down here. Ellie notices, and the protagonist thinks, great, now I'm screwed. If they find out he has this creature, his excuse won't work. But at the same time, it's a good chance. He can't hide Nero forever. If he's going to become a real pioneer, he'll have to work with him. He decides this is the perfect opportunity to show Nero has value. He calls the two of them over and says he has an easy way to find the Stella fragment. A little later, Gale asks, hold on, you're telling me that thing is going to help us find it? The protagonist says yes, it'll be fast. While Gale is still doubting, Ellie is already hugging Nero and showering him with affection. Then Kay calls to Nero, let's go. Let's show this idiot how amazing you are. Nero suddenly slips out of her arms, spins, and shifts into his shiny version. They start wandering through the streets, and Gale is confused. How is there a creature that follows someone around and has a special ability? He's never heard of anything like that. Where did the kid even find this thing? Kay doesn't answer. He just says Nero is signaling the fragment is nearby. Nero closes his eyes like he's sensing some strange energy and starts flying toward it. The protagonist follows. They come to what looks like an abandoned parking structure. He thinks it's weird they already went down so far and now they have to go even deeper, but Gay tells him to stop being scared. If this is the way, then let's go. Now they're in a room with pillars marked with numbers. Ellie says it's way bigger than she expected. The protagonist tries to figure out what this place used to be for. Nero changes direction. So did they find something? Then a metallic foot slams into the ground. The trio braces themselves. Gale reaches for his sword, saying he found something. Alright, but what is this weird robot in front of them? The thing starts analyzing them and spits out Code 81, CFF4. Gale gets Code 7, DA97C, and the protagonist realizes it's scanning their colors, hex color codes. Then it scans him. Color 0000 detected. Black witch color detected. Target must be eliminated, and it immediately smashes him, sending him flying back. He yells, asking if the thing's gone crazy. Gale and Ellie come in from behind, saying that whatever this creature is, they should crush it now. The protagonist throws a punch into its punch, but the impact shocks him. Its hand is way too hard. The monster raises its arm to hit again, but Ellie lands a strike to its neck. The thing turns toward her, and Gale hits it from the other side, striking its arm. Ellie's confused. She just attacked with color power, so why didn't it even scratch it? Then she notices it seems to have an ink core. That means they need to break that to drain its strength. The protagonist comes in under its arm and hits it in the ribs, but the monster almost counters. He's confused. His attacks aren't doing anything. He could use that power where he turns completely black, but that drains his color, so he tests it by covering only his fist. Then he slams a heavy punch into the middle of the creature's chest, shattering it and ripping out the ink device. The glowing eye suddenly goes dark, and the monster drops dead. He says that thing was more annoying than he expected. He looks at the ink core and says it looks really different from what they usually see. Mary would definitely like getting something like this, while the other two are still furious, demanding he explain his powers because they never know what to expect from him. They say he should have used that black punch from the start. The protagonist tells them to stop being so demanding, and when he starts explaining how it drains color, the door behind them opens. They look over confused. Like, how did that just open by itself? Nero walks up, basically telling them to go in. The protagonist, staring into the darkness, asks if Nero is sure this doesn't look safe, and it reminds him of that barrier from earlier. The moment the protagonist touches it with his finger, the energy suddenly expands and drags everyone inside. The three of them end up in a black and white void, trying to understand what's happening. It's completely dark and nobody can see anything. Then Gale looks down and sees his color is completely gone. All three of them are colorless. Only the protagonist still has black hair. The next chapter cuts to the East Administrative Office. Someone slams a hand on the desk, yelling that damn kid disappeared. He orders them to find where he went and asks what they're doing. A guy holding a paper stammers that he went on an expedition with Red, and he left a message, "Don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong." The director is furious, saying that idiot took someone black with him. How can he bring someone that dangerous out into the field? Red must have lost his mind. He was a hero, but this time he went too far. When that giant hand appeared in the city, they worked hard to cover it up. But now the council is already a mess, with everyone saying the black tide has started again. How is he supposed to talk to the council now? Nothing is going to get resolved. Camellia, the girl with two colored hair, tells him to calm down. The director is in a terrible mood today. At this rate, he'll end up in the hospital. Camellia is the captain of the Pioneer Corps. She says she knows he's worried, but if Red went, then he has a plan. He's the most reliable security person they have, and definitely the best suited for the job. If he brought a high-risk person, then he must be aiming for something unexpected. She's sitting there looking off to the side while the director says the last thing they need right now is doubt or distrust. She's irritated too, saying this whole thing is way bigger than it looks. Meanwhile, he keeps complaining, saying he knows that if Red is there, the worst probably won't happen, but it's still dangerous. She's talking about the bitter tea, and he tells her to focus on the conversation. Then she asks if he's that scared just because of the Black Witch. He says yes. Black is the most dangerous color of all. It's the color that brought the first black tide. Back then, humanity was almost wiped out. Creatures appeared and the world was covered in darkness. The tide will come again. They already know that. They've been preparing, strengthening the city to withstand it. That's exactly why they're so desperate to explore and reclaim as much land as possible. And she must have seen the reports of strange phenomena keep increasing. Camellia just watches while he keeps going on about how dangerous it is, how risky the boy is. She says he'll have to talk to the council, since Red already took the black one out there. But he says that's a lot easier said than done. He'll try his best. Maybe the Shining City can find some use for that kid. Back in the void, Gale is furious that all his color is gone, so why does the protagonist still have black hair? The protagonist says the obvious, maybe because he's black. The problem for Gale and Ellie is that both of them feel like they have no strength left in their bodies. The protagonist is confused. They're clearly not used to being without color. But at the same time, ever since he entered this space, he's had a strange feeling like if he focuses his vision, he can see something different. Then a bunch of strange voices start echoing through the area. Gale gets ready to draw his sword, telling whoever's there to show themselves. The protagonist feels like he's heard that whisper before. It's that feeling that something bad is about to happen, and then there's a long-haired figure behind him. When the protagonist turns around, they all look confused. It looks like a creature, but they didn't sense anything when it arrived. Then the girl points at the protagonist. His vision suddenly blurs, and he sees a city with a portal in the middle. Gigantic creatures of darkness destroying everything. Up above, the witch is flying, staring down at the planet. The protagonist wonders if this is a memory or reality. He doesn't even know who he really is anymore. Then a voice says that if that's the case, he needs a name, and says K is his name. He should find his own light and color. The protagonist jolts awake, breathing hard, asking what the hell that messed up scene was. But deep down, he's sure he saw Lumiel. Then his moment gets cut off by Ellie and Gale yelling for the enemies to come at them, saying they'll take them down. But at the same time, he looks back. She's on the ground, and someone is slicing through the air. The guy's standing there with black ink leaking out of his eye, saying he's gonna kill everything in front of him. Meanwhile, Ellie's apologizing to her sister, promising she'll never do it again. The main guy can tell neither of them is doing well. They really shouldn't stay there standing around for long. Then Nero comes flying in, and the main guy's relieved. At least Nero's safe. The little thing starts doing this goofy dance and looks like it's pointing in a direction. Kay realizes Nero's found a route, but they still needed to take care of those two, so he asks for help using his ability. Nero's light spreads out, clearing that black energy out of both of their eyes. The main guy tells them to stay there because he needs to check something. Then he follows Nero's trail, but it feels like he's been walking forever and still can't see anything. And the whispering won't stop, saying something about how no color can ever stain you. Kay's already sick of all these cryptic lines that don't mean anything, until he spots a bright star shining at the top of the sky. He looks like he knows what it is, and he takes off running and finally finds Stella's fragment. Just from the look of it, it's definitely what he was searching for. But the shape is different from what he expected. Maybe each fragment has a different shape. Either way, he needs to grab it and get out of there. He's tired of that creepy place. But when his hand gets close, he sees the fragment is a mix of countless colors. And the second he touches it, all those colors look like they're getting absorbed into him. The main guy realizes he had zero intention of activating his ability, so why did that happen? He decides, fine, whatever. He already pulled his hand back and it seemed like it only happened for a moment. But then in the blink of an eye, all the darkness covering the room breaks apart, and he can see his friends way off in the distance. He realizes that place is full of mysteries. He walks up to them asking if they're feeling okay, and they want to know how he ended up fine in all that darkness. He tells them to focus on what matters most. He found Stella's fragment. Gale takes a look. Well, it's not what Red described, but it's kind of small. Ellie's more impressed by how many colors it has, but she also wants to know if Kay really wasn't affected. He says yeah, he feels totally fine. Then out of nowhere, Nero opens his mouth wide and eats the fragment. All three of them freak out, and the main guy asks what he's doing. Gale grabs the little creature and starts shaking it, telling it to spit it out already. At the same time, the place starts collapsing. The three of them have to run so they don't get buried. And then we see outside people gathered around that huge head. Arancia walks up to some cuts in the ground and says she knew there was a dangerous entity there, but she never imagined it would be something like this. The guy behind her comments that it must be that thing. She says yes, the battle addict, the human-shaped creature known as the Sword Demon. She thought it was just going to be a simple territorial dispute, but of course one of the Black Witch's hands had to show up. And the worst part is, every time that bastard appears, it's a huge problem before it disappears again. So she says the investigation has to end there, and everyone needs to fall back. Someone says they're almost at their destination, and she answers that the minimum objective has already been secured. They got ink and raw materials, that's enough. The rookies also got to see the Black Land, so that's already plenty. But then a red ink explosion goes off behind them. Right away, everyone assumes it has to be red. If a fight's breaking out like that, the demon has to be nearby. And then a flash comes flying their way. She tells everyone to get down. The slash looks like it's going to hit dead on, but she swings her hammer and smashes into the attack, dispersing it. Immediately, she announces the expedition is over, and everyone is to return to the forward base. She's going to help Chief Red. The blue guy next to her says he'll guide the group and tells her to be careful. And with that, Arancia charges in. In the middle of the chaos, we see Red fighting the Sword Demon head-on, straight up. The creature pulls a spear from its back and throws out this Spartan-style strike, but Red blocks with his katana, redirecting the attack to the side. The monster closes in again and goes for a hit to the head, and Red, looking bored, just keeps defending. The Sword Demon is surprised, because not only did Red block, he also created a red explosion right in front of him. As the creature recoils, someone praises the distraction Red created. It's Arancia coming in from the side saying he's not getting away. She lands a clean hammer hit, and the creature gets slammed into the ground hard. She lands, and Red says, "Whew, that was close." But unfortunately, the thing is still standing and coming at them, so clearly it wasn't enough. Red says it's fine. With the color she has, this will be easy to handle. They just can't hold back. Arancia says they're lucky she got there before he did, because nobody likes seeing Red fight seriously. She stomps, lifts her hammer, and says it's time to break another one of the witch's hands. The demon just stares in silence, until someone suddenly says, "Almost there." Everyone looks back toward the hole, and the main guy's group is climbing up, telling each other to stop pushing and all that. The three of them come up from below, with the main guy saying he's never been so happy to escape a place like that, and there's no way he ever wants to go back. That's when he notices the demon in front of them, and right after that, Red and Arancia are there too. They both rush forward, warning them to be careful. They shouldn't try to fight it at all, but that's exactly what they all do. And then one slash from the demon breaks both of their blades. Gale looks like he's about to die right there, but then Kay steps in front, activates that black ink protection on his arm, except the cut hits his whole body. And just like that, he's wrecked, drops to the ground. Gale gets hit in the stomach, and Ellie gets grabbed by the neck and pinned. Right away, the demon tells them to stay still, and demands they tell him where the damn key is. If they don't obey and answer, everyone's gonna die. Then we see that poor Kay didn't just lose his arm. Nero's there crying over his little body. Red is furious at that bastard demon, while Nero is just watching him from behind. The main guy's hand starts moving, and the demon says the girl's gonna get cut if they don't decide. Arancia tells him to stop. They have no idea what he's talking about. But right then, Kay gets back up. When the Sword Demon looks back, he panics and asks who he is. And the main guy stands up too, his arm already rebuilding itself, covered in black darkness. The Sword Demon can't understand how this kid got up, or why he's seeing the color black in a human. The main guy reaches his hand out and starts draining him. The Sword Demon gets pulled in, while the two leaders just stand there in shock. And the demon ends up right in the main guy's hand. Arancia grabs the other two and tells them to get out of there right now. Red's thinking the black has completely consumed Kay, like he turned into one of those people from the so-called Black Hand. The Sword Demon realizes his very existence is being drained. That wasn't a hallucination. He definitely had the same power as her. Are we talking about the little witch? Some strange voice says it's him. He's the key. Then little mouths appear around the main guy's arm, moving toward the demon. The demon yanks his sword out and starts cutting everything. He knows he can't face the kid like this, so first he has to tear off his limbs. He throws out a chain of slashes that blasts across the whole ground, but the sword does nothing to the boy's body. The main guy grabs the demon's sword, and the little mouths keep creeping up from his foot. The demon backs off and barely dodges, freaked out that he's been put in this situation. But then someone to the side asks what he's looking at, and Arancia, as always, comes out of nowhere with that hammer and lands a clean hit, smiling like a maniac and asking if he feels like dying today. Her hit blows up the demon's sword. He glares at her, furious, knowing this is dangerous. He needs to retreat and report to the others that he found the key. Arancia sees him backing off and starts cursing him out, telling him to stop running just because he's losing. Red moves in and she tells him not to let that guy enter the depths. And then Red calls out to him, asking where he thinks he's going. Seriously, kid. He conjures the fire of annihilation and a huge red slash comes down, ripping through the demon's arm. The whole ground gets torn apart and the severed piece drops like meat hitting a grill. The Sword Demon is stunned because that was a chroma ability. And Red tells the bastard to stop trying to run. Wasn't he the one who told them to fight seriously? because if that's how it is, he's getting sent to hell along with his friends. Another chain of slashes tears into him, but he looks back and says next time it won't end like this. The key will belong to him. Then he slams into a wall, dives into the black ink, and disappears. Arancia wants to chase, but Red says it won't work. It's too dangerous to push any farther now. She stomps in frustration, saying that bastard got away again. But they can see there's nothing they can do. They're not prepared to enter the depths. Unfortunately, that's their limit for today. And it's infuriating knowing that this damn black land works like a shield for those people. Suddenly, someone calls for the captain. It's Ellie, apologizing for being a burden. He smiles and says it's fine. Just being alive is enough. Arancia agrees. Running into that guy and making it out alive is already insanely lucky. But the most important question is what they're going to do about the kid in the background who's all black. Red's thinking he knew the kid was dangerous, but not like this. And he's noticing the kid is even absorbing the black land. Then the mist starts to clear, and the main guy turns pale again. They ask if he's going to recover, but then they see he's colorless. Eyes closed, collapsing to the ground like he's nothing. Now they're even more lost about who he really is. The scene cuts to the sword demon kneeling on the ground, trying to remove the chroma from his arm. He starts regenerating, until a voice asks who beat him up like that. It had to be him, sticking his nose where it doesn't belong. When he looks back, it's Viper. She walks up saying she was bored out of her mind, so she's dying to know what happened for him to end up this messed up. Who beat him down like that? She looks to the side, sees some chroma, and says, traces of scorching heat. So you must have fought Red, huh? And you still managed to come back alive after that hit. Still, it's funny seeing you try that hard. It's almost hilarious. The sword demon is furious, telling her to shut up and get lost. But she keeps going, saying that guy is way too strong for a human, which is kind of weird. Too bad he fights by burning up his own life, so sooner or later he'll destroy himself. There goes the twist. She keeps pestering him, telling him to answer how the fight went. She saw the Black Witch's curtain open. Didn't he see it too? Does he know how that happened with that creepy stare? He's seething, thinking there's no way he's telling her anything. If they find out the key's identity, it'll be a massive problem. And of course he wants that boy for himself. He leaves and Viper just stands there bored. But then she smiles, saying when he acts that suspicious, it just makes it obvious there's something interesting going on. Whatever, she'll figure it out on her own anyway. Her shy version agrees. She's right. They don't need that idiot. She's sure he did something that opened the curtain, and it has to do with those people from the city, since he fought Red. If they move a few more creatures around, the clues will show up. Staring ahead, there's a fox with 36 tentacles, warning that they're going to have to stir things up. Back in the colorful city, the main guy is out cold in bed, and the team watches him, looking pretty down. Red says he can't even bring himself to look anyone in the face. He said nobody would get hurt in that training, but he couldn't keep that promise. It's his fault the main guy ended up so pale. Looking at a clock, he tells himself he hasn't changed anything back then or now. Damn, so he was a hero. Ellie though says that considering the survival rate for new pioneers on basic missions, it was basically luck they're still alive. Honestly, everyone's safe because of the captains. Ellie says she's going to get stronger, and he tells her not to rush. Meanwhile, poor Mary is just standing there completely lost, trying to figure out what's even going on. Why would one of the most famous colorists in the city suddenly be in her house? They showed up saying they were Kay's coworker, and she got worried when he turned up in that condition. At least it doesn't look like they've got anything against him. Still, he could wake up already, because she can't handle all of this by herself. Then Red calls out to her asking if she's his friend, and she says yes. He tells her she doesn't need to worry about his condition, but he wants to ask her something. They're looking for a creature called Nero. Where was it? Right then the little thing pops off the protagonist's shoulder, and Gale points like, there it is. That thing right there. Nero freaks out, and they say that's the creature that swallowed Stella's fragment. They're already annoyed because it was hard to explain anything with that thing disappearing. Nero starts bouncing around, jumps on one person, then another, and ends up falling into Mary's lap. She lights up saying she was worried. She knew Nero had been hanging around in Kay's shadow, but it never showed up. She says she's happy it's okay, while Red says there's something familiar about it. Then seeing Nero's mouth open with a glow inside, it suddenly spits Stella's fragment out. Red just stares, shocked, while Ellie says, "Thank God, I thought we were going to have to pull it out of that thing." Then he reaches out, grabs it, and says they finally found another piece. How many sacrifices did they have to make just for this? The scene cuts to someone yelling that it's dangerous. Ellie and Gale weren't going to be able to stop it. He had to help. An attack slams into the sword demon, and it turns out it was a nightmare. The protagonist jolts awake, breathing hard. Right then he looks over and Red is there holding the fragment with everyone else around. He immediately asks where he is and where that guy went. But the biggest problem is he has no color at all. How is he supposed to explain that now? He's screwed. He's going to get kicked out again like last time. But Red tells him to lift his head. Did he commit some kind of crime to be making that face? His appearance doesn't matter. What matters is they pulled off something incredible on their first expedition. Red didn't expect them to get that far, and he'd better be ready, because they're going to be using him a lot. Then he welcomes him to Team Red. Mr. Albino gets all emotional and goes, "Okay, thank you." With that, Red heads out like, "Alright, talk about whatever you want. I'm going to meet with Lord Luminous. Feel free to take orders directly from the pioneers." And he's gone. Now they're alone, and Ellie asks the protagonist if he remembers anything. What happened after he passed out? Kay thinks it's better not to talk about it too much and says, honestly, he doesn't really remember what happened. Ellie closes her eyes and goes, "Alright then, keep your secrets." He tries to explain he's serious. His memory's actually messed up, But changing the subject, he asks how he's supposed to turn black again. Mary suddenly tells him not to worry. She already had something ready for this situation. Everyone's getting along, and she pulls out a bottle of black ink she grabbed from the dump. Ellie asks why she brought that disgusting stuff. It was literally trash, wasn't even called ink. It was just waste. While Kay opens it, he says he knew he could count on her for some exclusive ink. Someone says he can't be serious. That's basically poison. But Kay takes a big gulp anyway. His hair starts getting dyed, and he says he's good now, feels great, fully recovered. Mary even tells the other kids that if it's not enough, she's got more saved up for him, and he thanks her. Then Gale turns and asks if they're done with the fake nonsense. He says it's weird that the kid's arm went back to normal. That level of physical regeneration is something only high-ranking colorists can do, so how is that possible? Then he demands Kay answer why he threw himself in front of it earlier. Kay gives the classic nice guy protagonist answer. I don't know, I thought you were in danger. I figured I could stop it with my ability, but I kind of failed. It didn't really work. Gale gets furious, grabs him by the collar, and asks who asked for his help. He really hated Kay. But Mary cuts in, telling him to shut up. What does he think he's saying? He'd better stop acting tough in here. Then idiot. He gets hit with an electric shock from the albino. He storms off pissed. Kay tells them not to worry about it, that's just how Gale is. Then Mary says she's leaving too. The protagonist thanks her, and she heads out. He says he's going back as well, but then he remembers there's something he wants to show her. Something special he got after beating a weird creature on the expedition. He picked it up thinking she'd like it, and he hands her that ink core. Obviously, she has no idea what it is. The scene switches to Red approaching a brightly lit place. He looks up, there's a flash of colors, and at the top of an altar, someone is waiting. He says he's here, and the girl turns around and tells him he can come in. She's been expecting him. He says that after a long time he finally has good news. Just like he predicted, they can now open the Black Witch's curtains. Lord Luminous. Luminous has serious presence, totally otherworldly. Albino, huh? Goes perfectly with that kid who absorbs everything. Back at Mary's shop, she says it's incredible. She'd seen something like it in books, and she's sure it's ancient civilization tech, a device that uses ink as fuel. They'd seen similar things before, but this one's efficiency is ridiculous. And to think there was a golem in the ruins still moving to this day using that old ink-insane technology. The protagonist in the background says it just looks like a normal core. Is it really that good? She says, of course it is. Top exploration troops only find one of these maybe once a year. She wishes she'd lived back then when ink tech was unbelievable. But now it's all lost to time. He says if it's that rare, it must be worth a fortune. So why not sell it? She calls him an idiot. Did he forget she's an amazing mechanic? Like she cares about money. She's going to take it apart and study everything she can. And he should expect something good because right now she's getting a bunch of ideas. She's going to build something incredible for him. She starts analyzing it, and the protagonist thinks she looks happy, so it was worth it. You can even tell the art style shifts a little and gets softer, kind of prettier. When he's about to leave, she says someone was looking for him. When she went to the dump to find ink for his recovery, she saw some weird people who wanted to talk to her. At first, she thought they were just thugs from the sector, but they knew who both of them were. A guy with glasses came up asking if she was Kay's friend, Miss Mary. He wanted to meet the bearer of black, everyone's been talking about. That's what they said. As soon as she realized they seemed like trouble, she got out of there, so he should be careful. He thanks her, and she tells him not to get involved with strange people. Now he's outside, thinking he feels uneasy. Security in this sector clearly isn't great. And the way he said things, they're definitely going to come after him for some reason. Walking through the streets, he's exhausted. It's been a long time since he's been home. He just wants to rest. But something he's been noticing is that the number of homeless people seems to be going up. If the people who usually stay underground have come up here, something happened. Is there a gang war going on or something? So there's an even deeper sector than this. People even poorer than you. The world's really messed up. Suddenly, Nero slips out from his shirt and starts pointing toward a dark alley. The protagonist says, Nero, you know dark alleys are insanely dangerous in the Shadow District. But the little thing keeps tapping insistently, and he realizes there has to be something there. So he decides to test something he's been practicing and covers just the area around his eye with his power. He remembers that when he's covered, his vision changes. He can see much farther, and the colors get way clearer. He activates that inverted vision, and immediately, deep in the alley, he can see someone glowing. It looked like Luminous. He asks who's there, and the person suddenly takes off running. He wonders if it's the person who was trying to find him. If it is, he needs to figure out who it is fast. But when he turns into the alley, he runs straight into a place that's completely colorful. The shadows from the passage he came through dissolve, and she appears behind him saying she didn't want to reveal herself right away. But he should feel happy and proud because meeting her isn't something most people ever get to do. She's pretty full of herself too. The protagonist jumps and she says she's been looking forward to meeting the Child of Black. Her name is Celestia. Wait, wasn't it Luminous? The protagonist is stunned. She has a body that shines with every color. Oh, got it. She's the current Luminous. So Luminous is the title, and Celestia is her name. And she's the peak of the Shining City, which just confuses him more. Why is she looking for him, and why has she been watching him? Suddenly, the voices in his head start talking, saying she wants that light. A bunch of hands reach towards Celestia while Kay wonders why this is happening now. The voice keeps repeating, telling him to devour her. Devour that light right now. And Celestia's just standing there like, so, why are you all black like that? I didn't do anything to you. I heard from Red that you were completely consumed by darkness. but you didn't die. And even then, you didn't turn into a black hand. You probably have some connection to the witch Nyx and don't even know it. Some people in leadership are suggesting I should get rid of you, but I don't want to. Seeing how much you resist being devoured by the blacks shows your potential, and your ability is extremely valuable. She's saying all that while the kid is basically having a full-on episode. Then she turns and says they need to talk. She taps her staff on the ground, and just like that, his black completely falls apart. No contest. He puts a hand to his face and says that's the clearest he's heard the voice all day, and she surprises him. That's an interesting way to put it. What kind of voice was it? Tell me. Do you hear the Black Witch's voice? He awkwardly says he has no idea, it's just a weird whisper. Celestia tells him to relax a little. She just wants to get to know him better after everything she heard from Red. But before anything else, she wants to express her gratitude on behalf of the city. He's like, gratitude for what? What did he even do? Then her hand goes to her ring and she shows him Stella's fragment. She explains that very few people know what it really means. She truly wants to thank him for recovering that precious light. He tries to say it wasn't him, it was the whole team. She says she understands, but only he managed to open the Black Witch's barrier. He has no idea how incredible what he did was. Not even a luminous like her can open a barrier like that, because the only person with access to it is the witch herself, and those fragments are scattered across the Blacklands, but most of them are sealed inside barriers like that one. They're constantly fighting the witch's black hands to try to reclaim them, but the only fragments they've managed to get so far were a few that were exposed outside that place. Kay asks her to wait. Why is she explaining all this? He doesn't even know how the fragment is used or why Red and she keep saying it's so important. Celestia says she should have explained earlier, but seeing it in person would be way easier than anything she could say. Suddenly, the two of them are kind of teleported to a spot above the whole city, looking out at the barrier of darkness in the distance. She tells him not to panic. They just move to the position where she stays. He's the first person to ever see this, so he can consider himself lucky. Now watch the glow blooming in that darkness. Stella's fragment gives him a pillar of light shooting up toward the sky, and it starts echoing across the whole region. The protagonist just stands there in shock, not believing it. Activating the fragment was pushing back all the black lands. Next chapter. Early the next morning, everyone's celebrating, saying the Luminous One managed to repel the black lands. People saw that unbelievable pillar of light, and they can't even believe their territory finally expanded. It's the first time in decades that humanity has been able to take space back. Everyone's curious about what the current Luminous One looks like, and others are excited, because new land means new opportunities. You can get new resources, rarer stuff, and ink. The protagonist is at the bar, just listening to everyone talk about it. The city's basically gone crazy overnight, but after what happened yesterday, it makes sense. That Stella fragment made the impossible happen, but she warned him that now that they know he exists, they'll start hunting him to capture the power he has. Still, he doesn't need to worry for a while, because the city will block them, and if it ever comes down to war, they'll always protect him. She wanted to give him everything she could, but right now the city is stretched thin for labor. Resources are so scarce, they're barely surviving, and she spends all her strength just making sure the Blacklands don't advance. But Kay has to understand he's special, and a lot of people fear his power, or they'll want to use him. She'll try to prevent that kind of situation, so for now he can keep working as a pioneer. She tells him he can go back, and the place starts falling apart. She really doesn't stop talking. She thanks him for the amazing conversation they had and says goodbye. Basically, she did all the talking. Then we see the protagonist back at the bar, trying to figure out what to do. Mary seemed kind of in trouble because she used up all the ink and he's got free time. Should he go mining like he always did? Probably not. How about not leaving the city alone, kid? He ends up at a place he never imagined he'd enter, the meeting hall where a bunch of pioneers gather. Back when he didn't have a color, he couldn't even get close, but now he can walk in with his head held high. Not that he needs to overdo it, trying to get attention with that black hair. Everyone immediately starts talking. Black? What kind of ability does Black even use? I heard Black crushed it on that exploration. There's another redhead staring at him, saying he wants to know who the kid is that Red chose. The girl in front of the orange tells him to calm down and stop acting like a child, but he asks the orange girl how things went out there. Is he really as good as the rumors say? She says yes. The kid's pretty impressive. The only problem is he has countless unknown unsettling factors. He's someone you need to keep an eye on. The red guy just keeps saying he's curious to meet Kay, the black one. At the desk, the receptionist asks if it's his first time in the meeting hall. He says yes. He's looking for work. She tells him to fill out some forms to get a badge and take the beginner creature missions, since he's just starting out. Meanwhile, people at the bar are staring and talking. That kid's color is disgusting. How can someone be black? He's not even human. Another one turns and says, this is nasty. He looks like a creature. I don't know why those idiots are making a big deal like it's something important or special. Don't you agree, boss? That boss is a washed-out red, thinking to himself that the black-haired kid is unsettling to look at. He's disliked him since that recent mission. He's just a lucky punk who got a colorist attention. He doesn't get why they let a kid like that walk around like it's normal, while he, a veteran rank B, doesn't have the qualifications to enter certain missions. When he sees the protagonist leave, he says, all right, follow me. We're gonna give him a proper purification. Careful. He'll suck you dry. Out in the snow, the protagonist is swinging his pickaxe and mines another chromatic ore. He says it's the first time he's managed to gather this much. He heard mining's been weak lately, so this is perfect. Like ink, ores can be used as fuel and to make different weapons. He knows Mary's going to be thrilled when she sees it. Thanks to those oils, gathering resources has been easy. Dark hidden, doesn't matter. He can see everything clearly. It burns through a lot of his ink, so he can't use it for long, but it's worth it. Seeing he's filled 2 sacks, he figures that might draw more attention than it should. Maybe he should practice the abilities he's been wanting to use. The first and main one is ink absorption. What he knows is he has to touch something directly, and sometimes it gets out of control. He really needs to remember he has to learn how to use it. But the moment he cracks open the rock, the ink gets sucked out instantly. He starts realizing that the more intense the color he's facing, the more uncontrollable the ability becomes, and it starts pulling everything in. But no matter how many colors he absorbs, it all mixes together and turns black in the end. In theory, each color has its own traits, so couldn't he use their powers separately? Because if you think about it, black contains all colors. Maybe like the luminous one, he has access to everything. He decides to focus for real. Like that moment when red used that energy. He wonders if this is what it feels like, a heat that makes his whole body feel like it's burning. Suddenly the power collapses. He realizes it won't be that easy. What he doesn't notice is there's a little rat watching from behind. A while later, when he's heading back, guess who's waiting? Saying the slow bastard finally crawled back. It's the 200-year-old quartet. Just humans, just a bunch of old guys, asking if the city's celebrity is done for the day. Must be nice to see a little piece of trash like him. The insults are non-stop. Kay is standing there like, what the hell? Who are these old dudes? They walk up, saying they thought he got lost out there. For a newbie, he really is lost. Kay asks who they are, and one of them raises his hand like, for someone like you, it doesn't matter. They start to pass until the washed-out red looks back and says, hold up. You've got a lot of chromatic ore, don't you? The blue says, boss, this guy's carrying the good stuff. The red asks, kid, you got some good info out there, didn't you? That's way too much luck for a newbie. But trying to take all of that for yourself is pretty bold. How about you share? Tell us where it is and how you got it. He tells the others not to let the kid resist. One of them pulls a knife and tells him not to try anything or he'll die in the process. The protagonist drops the sacks on the ground. The guy with the dagger thanks him. Smart kid, smarter than I expected. And then, boom, he gets punched right in the face. The boss looks over and the guy drops stiff. Kay says it's unbelievable. Even after becoming a pioneer, people like this still show up. Why don't they stop wasting time and just come at him already? Mary's waiting. One comes from behind, talking about how polite his mother is, and goes for a stab, but the protagonist ducks, dodges, smashes him in the face, and another blast hits the wall. When he turns, the banana yellow guy manages to land a hit, except he doesn't. Kay blocks it, crushes the guy's hand, twists him, touches his foot, it turns into a full-on beatdown, finishing with a cannon shot to the mouth. 5 teeth gone easy. The protagonist says people who only crave what others have eventually pay the price. He turns like, all right, just one left, when a bullet comes flying at him. He barely dodges. It leaves a crater in the wall. He's confused. This piercing power is insane. That's when he sees it. The guy has a long-range launcher, a little pistol loaded with ink. This one's the real threat. The shooter is furious. You bastard. How did you dodge that? Too bad I could have sent you straight to hell with the first shot. Then he starts dumping his life story. I dreamed of joining the rank squad. Not just anyone can do that, but some lucky nobody like you gets all the attention. He starts firing. The protagonist rushes in, dodging 2 shots. He slides in, one almost catches his cloak. He goes for a punch, but the shooter dodges. The protagonist keeps chaining attacks, but the guy is shooting and defending at the same time, like a ninja. Still, he's feeling the pressure from the kid who absorbs, until he fires into the ground and creates an explosion. The protagonist is stunned. How can a weapon do that? The guy explains he has the color of crystallization, letting him create rubies and hematites. Even if it's a pretty common ability, combined with a weapon like this, it becomes lethal, because he can create any kind of ammo, something incredible. Unlike the filthy black the protagonist has, he keeps firing like crazy. While the protagonist thinks this guy with that weapon is a huge pain, he's awful, but the combo is genuinely strong. The protagonist considers covering himself, but black doesn't block everything. He could risk trying to defend, find out he can't, and get wrecked. But right then, 15 banana yellow whips come from behind the protagonist to grab him. He flinches. The red guy is surprised, and the other one manages to hold him. He yells to the boss that he'll restrain the kid, while the protagonist kicks him in the head. The boss thanks him, and tells the filthy one to die for good. He fires straight at the protagonist's face, and it looks like a direct hit. But from far away, you can see the face turning black. A foot slips to the side. Kay staggers, dizzy, while the exhausted red wants to know how this is possible, how the kid is still alive with a bullet through his head. Kay stares and says it's a good thing he managed to absorb it. If that had gone wrong, he'd be dead. The shooter says it's impossible. He hit him dead on. Kay says, good. Now it's over for him. The guy starts firing again, telling him to die. Every shot hits, except Kay's learned now. He's just absorbing with that black barrier. He stands there like he owns the place, saying that now that the little show is over, it's his turn. The shooter is shocked, saying it makes no sense. How is he taking these shots and staying intact? He keeps aiming, saying he won't fall for some cheap trick. The kid must be destroyed inside and will die any second. Kay thinks the bullets aren't the biggest problem. The real problem is that absorbing costs way more energy than he gains back. At this rate, he'll run out of ink, so he needs to end the source of it, the weapon. He stretches out his hand and says he'll use this real quick. The shooter has no idea what he's talking about. The protagonist starts forming a stone in his hand, saying he's going to do something similar to what the other guy did. Instantly, a bunch of black spears start materializing. He gives a goofy little smile, and says it looks like it worked. Up until now, he's only fought with punches, but maybe this is what he was missing. The ability to crystallize his own color. He thanks him, because by absorbing the bullets, he understood how it works. And then take this. He throws a Spartan spear that explodes into the guy's back. The shooter yanks his weapon up again and starts firing at the protagonist. But K is unstoppable. No dodging, no backing off, just aiming the spear and absorbing the bullets, saying it's useless. If he wants to fight that badly, he's going to end up as a punching bag. The protagonist charges, slams the spear into the ground, and copies that other ability. The guy can't understand how this kid is using every technique he used. The protagonist says the shape is different, but let's try it. He forms a knife and slices, cutting the gun clean in half. The idiot drops the pistol and says no way. His special weapon is gone. How did this kid break it with one strike? Maybe Black has some kind of power he never even imagined. This kid is a monster. Right then, the protagonist is starting to run out of color, saying he's tired. Looks like his efficiency with these abilities is terrible. He barely used them and he's already drained. He looks at the guy and says, so what are you gonna do now? No weapon coming in with your fists? You know that won't do much. The guy expands his ink aura, telling the kid to stop getting cocky. How does he think he reached amazing rank B? He's about to learn what the ability to create rubies really means. Even without his weapon, it's easy to kill someone like that kid. So he fires off a whole barrage straight at the protagonist, and the protagonist keeps triggering the Black to tank it. Damn, he made a huge shield, then goes in with a full-on rush like storming a castle, soaking up everything, closes the distance, drives a punch right into the middle of the guy's ribs. The idiot starts writhing, and the protagonist grabs him by the neck and slams him into the ground. Then he asks if the bastard is done with his little show. He already had way too much to deal with, and now some piece of trash like this is still wasting his time. The faded red, though, says it doesn't make sense. How does someone awaken yesterday as a pioneer and already be this strong? The protagonist looks kind of uninterested. Like, is that really all you've got to say? Until the guy yells that he's a monster. It was already disgusting that he had that black color. Even worse, his strength doesn't make any sense at all. Doesn't matter where he's from. Nothing about him is normal. He should feel freakish for being born like that. How can anyone live in this world with a color like that? Yeah. He really was a monster from the Blacklands wearing a human mask. That actually hits the protagonist a bit. He's just holding the guy there, not saying anything. Then all of a sudden the guy completely loses it, because the protagonist's eye is 100% black, staring him down. And then he suddenly goes back to normal and tells him he won't stop talking nonsense. He came at him with all that desire to beat him up, and now that he got wrecked, he's acting like this. But he gets it. He must be curious about the ability, so he'll show how it works. Since they wanted to steal his stones and made him waste energy, it's only fair. The king of sucking starts showing off his talent. Not long after, he trained 4 men. Comment if K is the king of sucking. He's standing there not knowing what to do next. He wanted to just leave those guys there and go, but that could cause trouble too. Everyone's already curious. He's drawing a lot of attention, and if people find out he drained them and left them there to die, it'll only get worse. That's when he remembers he had a bottle of personal ink. He starts splashing a bit on the idiots, some black on each one, just a little of what he's got, and boom, we're back in the Shining City, East Entrance. One of the guards looks to the side and sees the 3 captives there completely smeared in ink. The guy gets confused. Wait, why are these guys colorless? Did they burn through all their power in the Blacklands? Meanwhile, the protagonist slips by off to the side, trying not to get noticed. He used a bit of personal ink, but it should be enough to cover everything up. He's confident too. If it gets really bad, he'll talk to the captain and get out of it. Next scene, he calls for Mary and immediately tosses the bag down. She asks what's going on. He says he's got something insanely good for her. The second she sees the bag full of stones, she's shocked. How did he get that much chromatic ore? And he says it's what was left after finishing the guild mission. And he brought it to her because he remembered her. She gets all happy and wants to hug him, saying he's the best. Hey, have you ever thought about this? You can't drain Mary because she doesn't have any color. Damn, no way. I've got a big mouth. The second I say that, now she's got this golden little aura, kind of glowing around her. So the protagonist says that reminds him, he saw a shining color in Gale too. It felt really warm. Could it be Mary had some kind of glow inside her or something? He thinks about how she's always been someone who lights up everything around her. Even growing up poor and seeing the dark side of the city, she stayed positive. Maybe a warm, caring color really did suit her. Then she tells him she can't just keep getting stuff from him. He should go to the workshop, because she's going to give him a little present. She was making an exclusive exploit just for him. He's surprised and she says she's improved a lot. Plus, with all those crystals he brought, production will be easy. But then the door suddenly opens, and someone says they heard he came back from the Blacklands. It's Ellie, saying she knew he'd be there. The protagonist turns and sees Ellie and Gale, and he's like, what are you two doing here? You didn't come to challenge me again, did you? Please. Gale answers, asking if he wants to challenge him now. Ellie immediately snitches, saying Gale was literally training just now to beat K. But what's really going on is that the pioneers got summoned. The luminous lady praised their achievements, and everyone's being called to headquarters to get rewards. Mary's surprised when she hears that, and she pushes the protagonist, saying it's important he should go. He can see the item she wants to make later. Bye-bye. He's kind of confused, like, okay then, guess it's not ready yet. Now we're at the Dawn Barracks. Miss Lavian says it'd be good for the three of them to go in because they've been waiting for them. The protagonist is just looking around, seeing how interesting everything in headquarters is, countless trophies and achievements from expeditions. Lavian tells them to go in, and the moment the protagonist walks into the room, look who's there. Carmelia smiling a little, saying she heard they're the so-called main characters. She introduces herself as the squad captain and says it's a pleasure to meet them. The protagonist is surprised. He knows the captain is known as one of the few multicolor bearers even inside the city, and to think he'd run into one of those newspaper celebrities. She tells him not to be so nervous. She called them for a good reason. She was impressed by how much Mr. Red kept praising the new recruits, especially Kay, the little kid with the black, and since the perfect excuse came up, she invited them personally. But as always, he complains about the bitter tea. Lavian asks her not to start with that because the recruits are right there. Then she says, all right, introductions are done, and she's here to hand out rewards for the mission. First, each of them will receive a personal Pioneer bank book issued by the High Command. Inside is their payment and mission rewards. Since the corporation guarantees the credit, they can withdraw the money at any bank in the city. All three are stunned. The protagonist asks if that number is real. With that much, he could buy a house. Then she also shows them a C-rank Pioneer ID meant for new recruits. Since they already proved their value and experience, they're getting the title right away. Basically, now they have Pioneer benefits across the whole city. And last and most important, they requested the Chromatic Workshop to craft 3 custom items, whatever they want. The two idiots are in shock because even nobles have a hard time getting items from the Chromatic Workshop. Carmelia explains that of course Pioneers are VIPs there. That place makes all the equipment for colorists. So there's no better reward than something from the best workshop in the Shining City. The two of them are hyped. Damn, that's what I wanted. That's exactly what I want. Meanwhile, the protagonist stays quiet. Carmelia keeps talking, welcoming them, saying they're counting on them to wipe out the Black Ridges and all that. Also, they should know the fragment they brought back was extremely important, something tied 100% to this city's survival. So she's eager to see what they're capable of, just giving them that intense look. Outside, the protagonist basically jinxes his own life and says, hey Nero, don't you think today's been way too perfect? Only good stuff happening. I got promoted to C rank, became a Pioneer, made Mary happy, and now that woman over there is all happy too. There you go, now you're gonna have a problem. He gets to the shop and the doors open. When he goes in, the place is completely trashed. The next chapter starts at the Eastern Outpost. A bunch of colorists are warning about a massive invasion of creatures coming from the Blacklands. Man, those things are huge, straight up Attack on Titan. People are asking how long this damn anomaly is going to last while someone's yelling at them not to let their guard down. But there are way too many monsters coming. Up above, Viper watches everything, saying they need to try harder. She'll be really disappointed if they can't even handle this horde. Watching them kill the creatures, she says, well, she really did send a pretty pathetic attack. Luring weak monsters like that is a waste of time. She needs a sure way to bring down that disgusting city. Then maybe that was when the pillar rose up, spreading the darkness. She says she really will have to go in again. The pruning demon says, hold on, you want to go into the city? You trying to die? Viper says he doesn't understand anything. He's an idiot. She's going to share something interesting. Under the Shining City, there are routes that connect to the Blacklands, and she found something really useful down there. Has he ever heard of the Underground City? Now we're back with the protagonist entering Mary's shop, looking for her and not finding her. There are still a bunch of items in the workshop, and he's confused. It looks like someone came in and kidnapped her, but who would do that? No way he was going through the same thing again. He's already sinking deep into the darkness until he snaps out of it, with Nero calling him. The creature hops up onto the table and points out an item that looks like that dropper thing Mary mentioned. Since Nero brought it up, he decides to activate inverted vision, takes a look and sees there's still a bit of her aura. He can tell that wherever she went, she left a small trail. But he knows he has to calm down first and control his emotions. Those guys she warned him about earlier, maybe they were the kidnappers, that mysterious group that found her. Yeah, he says in 1 second he'll calm down, and the next he's like, city scum, you messed with the wrong person. Now I'm gonna find every one of you and wipe you all out. So much for being calm. He grabs the gauntlet and says he's gonna make good use of it. The moment he puts it on, the thing fills up. Black ink pours out of his body and starts flooding into the item. He says it looks like it has great efficiency. With that in hand, fights might be easier. Which is perfect since they're gonna find Mary now, wherever she ended up. Then we see him crossing an alley. Some beggars around, some suspicious people watching. Following her colors, he gets led to the entrance to the underground. Looks like they made another passage, which is why the place is packed with beggars. Suddenly someone shouts that they knew they were right, waiting there was a good idea. When the protagonist looks back, there's a bunch of faded color people staring at him. Kay doesn't get it, and they say they're not friends, but they've got business to settle. Kay ignores them and asks where Mary is. The tired green tells him he should start worrying about himself. Yeah, I think that was the guy who tried to throw him in the barrel and got drained. He tells Kay he's screwed. Because of the color Kay took from him, he suffered like hell just to recover a little. And now the day he gets revenge on that filthy bastard has finally come. Lord Bully told them to bring the kid, but he didn't say anything about him needing all his limbs. So today he's leaving here without any. He orders everyone to attack, but they're exhausted and pathetic. The protagonist makes a dagger and says he has zero intention of wasting even 1 second in this place. Since they're the trash of this city, he doesn't need to show mercy. He dodges the first one and lands 3 slashes, then 5, 6 more on the next. slicing through everyone. The guy who already got drained once can't understand how this is possible. He throws another wave attack at the protagonist, yelling that this brat is a monster. But K just blocks without caring about his arm, closes in and smashes him into the wall, saying honestly he doesn't like having to kill people, but it's different when it's kidnappers. He's already decided some of them are going to be crippled for life, and the one in front of him should consider himself lucky to still be alive, and there it is, he's using the drain again. The protagonist says it's disgusting for someone to call himself a pioneer while acting like this. Someone like him doesn't even deserve the blessing of the light. Then he hits him with Drain 2.0, and he even jumps in with him, straight into the hole. Going down into the underground, the protagonist says he never imagined he'd come back to this place. Next chapter, we see the protagonist there with the guy in the alley, telling him not to try anything stupid. The new albino warns the kid that he won't be safe after touching the shadow. Now that he's been marked by them, his life is over. Kay grabs him by the neck and says the bastard doesn't understand the situation. He needs to shut up and guide him before he gets killed. Then we see the protagonist walking, and everyone there is albino. Looking around, he realizes the place hasn't changed at all. The underground city, a place where the luminous ones glow can't reach. Basically, it was just a gang-infested place. That's it. There are barely any laws, and it's where everyone who has no color works in the underground mines. It's the only way they can survive, and it was here in this place that he met Mary for the first time. The new albino is standing there, pissed off, staring at the protagonist, but still acting like, yeah, sure. The goal is to take Kay back to the base, and he's gonna do it. This kid is basically walking to his death. Suddenly the guy stops and says they've arrived. He thought he was gonna die just waiting for this moment. The protagonist is surrounded by a bunch of people. Honestly, they've got a tiny bit of color, barely anything, and everyone's freaking out, whispering that the kid really has black color, the most hated color of all, the most depressing one. Then the boss shows up saying, the black one finally arrived. The guy runs up like, boss, I brought him just like you asked. But the leader can already tell the idiot lost his color again. He tells him to remember that someone without color is useless. The guy tries to explain, saying it was unavoidable. The leader goes, yeah, just as unavoidable as the fact that he's lost all his value. And that's it. He slices his throat, and the guy drops dead, and his blood is white. I hadn't even realized until now that blood has the same color as the ink. The protagonist looks at them and says they haven't changed at all. Now that he's here, where's Mary? The boss says the kid doesn't understand the situation. He has no leverage anymore. He should have thought a lot harder before coming down here, because if he keeps acting hostile, it'll be even harder to find the girl. Because even if she was filthy and completely colorless, she still wasn't totally useless. Who knows what happened to her? The protagonist is already fully dark, saying if they don't answer him, he'll just break everything. And he straight up summons that heavy hitter power. The boss flinches, the protagonist jumps at him and slams down with an impact that shakes the ground. Somewhere else in the base, everything's trembling, and they call for an orange-colored guy. Someone reports they've got a disaster on their hands. There's a black-colored kid causing chaos. The boss says he'll go see what's going on. Meanwhile, the glasses guy is yelling for help, telling them to stop this psycho. But the protagonist is punching everyone in the face, dropping people one after another, and all anyone can think is that he's a monster. Then that orange guy shows up, wanting to know what's happening. The long-haired guy smiles like, finally, the manager's here. He says it's way too loud. How are they struggling this much just to capture one black-colored kid? At this rate, the reputation of the shadow that rules the underground is going to be ruined. Kay notices immediately that this guy is weirdly strong. The long-haired guy says it's over for the kid. This guy is an A-rank pioneer. Kay should have listened while they were still going easy on him. All of a sudden, the orange guy scratches his head and moves in a second, almost landing a punch on the protagonist. Kay doesn't even flinch, stays calm and fires off a combo into the guy's chest. The orange guy smiles and asks if the kid thinks that's good, says it's his turn now and comes in to hit back. He lands a blow to Kay's chest and sends him flying. Kay blocks part of it with his arm though. Instantly, the orange guy is right there again and throws another punch. Kay ducks, then pulls out this suction thing, like an ink vacuum, and it sticks to thing. The orange guy immediately wonders what it is. It feels like something inside him is getting drained, so it powers up and blasts him off, telling him to stop with those weird attacks. The variables in this fight are way too strange, so he's gonna have to get serious. He can't hold back his strength anymore. The orange guy starts forming that Gaara-style armor, saying it's been a long time since he used his color power. Kay stares him down, knowing it's not enough. The fighting style he's using won't work. He needs some way to pierce through that defense. So he readies his glove and starts giving off a black aura too. The orange guy looks around, trying to figure out what's going on. It's the first time he's felt that creepy, chilling sensation. And then in an instant, the protagonist creates a sea of swords around him. He just summoned a whole black arsenal. Next chapter, fighting everywhere. The protagonist rushes in with a dagger, with kunai going all out. This kid's ability is insanely annoying. One weapon breaks, he grabs another and comes right back in. Another strike straight into the middle of the chest. Then he pulls out an axe too, lands one on the arm, switches weapons again, hits the shoulder. He doesn't stop. Double kunai attack, then another stabbing combo. The orange guy realizes that if it weren't for his reinforced body, he would have died a long time ago. Even if it's easy to break any one of those weapons, the kid has endless ones, and they're sharp. How is he, a shadow executive, getting beaten like this? He tells the black-colored bastard to stop. He doesn't care what Blank said. He doesn't even know what that means, but he orders the protagonist to die using the angle of destruction. The punch hits like a bomb right in the protagonist's chest, wiping out a huge part of the city. The orange guy looks down, and the kid looks like he just held it, blocked it, and on top of that, he's absorbing the rubble. He gets hit with the suction again. The orange guy starts wondering how many abilities this kid even has, but he says it doesn't matter. He just needs to activate his color ability again. Except then, his vision gets swallowed by black. His eye is basically getting blinded by the protagonist. He says he can't see. Then the kid comes in from his blind spot and lands an uppercut to the chin. The orange guy drops dizzy, realizing his strength is draining away. The protagonist's ink starts spreading across his body and he yells for him to get that color off him. The protagonist just stares, doesn't say a word. He grabs him by the neck, slams him into the wall, and says he doesn't fight fair, and now that he can't defend himself, he won't be able to resist the absorption. Another full drain. The long-haired idiot is standing there in disbelief that the manager got beaten by this monster. The guy turns albino. This time the protagonist drained him 100%. Then he pulls his hand back after all that work, looks to the side with that straight-up demonic stare. But the scene switches to Mary. She wakes up with a weird headache and finds herself in an empty room, not knowing where she is. Someone asks if the princess finally woke up. He'd been waiting for her. When she looks over and asks who he is, the guy says it's interesting. Who would have thought the colorless boy would draw this much attention? His color manifested late, which is really rare. But that expression is strange, like he actually carries emotions. The case she knew didn't feel human at all. Mary recognizes the voice right away and asks if it's blank. He's all purple now, and he says K has talent, and he says as expected. Mary remembers him, even though it's been a long time. She says he died back then, and he says he was almost killed. He thought he really got crushed when everything collapsed, but he got lucky and barely made it out alive. Who would have thought they'd meet again like this? He remembers the past just like she does, because everyone was special to him. The first lab rats he created. That day he barely survived, but now he's a successful man, even recognized by the boss. These days he's a shadow executive, and now Mary has to come with him, because he has a lot to show her about how far his research has progressed. A door opens, and there are all these tubes, colorless people walking by, crying quietly, and creatures biting. Mary is terrified, saying this horrible place shouldn't exist anymore. Then someone walks up like, blank, here's the latest extract. Blank says, good Mary, the timing is perfect. Let's see how the results turned out. She asks if they're still doing what they did before. He says of course they are. How could they not use something this incredible? And he welcomes Mary back, saying she's returned to the extraction system. Next chapter starts with the whole city getting wrecked. Everyone's running, saying the gang members have lost it. People need to get out before they get caught in the mess. And the crazy gang member is K, who keeps beating people down one after another. He ends up in front of a tunnel and asks if Mary is in there. The long-haired guy gets drained too and says yes, the person he's looking for is in there. Yeah, I did what you wanted, and then he gets punched and knocked out against the wall. The protagonist calls Nero and tells him to point out where Mary is. The little creature follows the path and starts walking while everyone else watches, and another group runs in and gets drained by the protagonist. Kay says he doesn't have time to deal with them one by one, so he's gonna end this fast, which is easy with this technique he learned. He makes that giant drill thing surge forward, ripping through all the walls. Meanwhile, Mary is saying Blank is insane. What is wrong with him? Why does he keep doing this? Blank turns confused, like, Mary, why are you so mad? I like you so much, and I'm grateful to you, because you were my test subject. The reason my research could shine. Now look at that incredible extraction. A guy stands in front of a door begging them not to do it. He wants to live, but they beat him, tell him to stop whining, and shove him inside while he screams for help. Then the door slams, the machine turns on, and a red color starts getting extracted. Mary watches, horrified, saying nothing changed. It's exactly the same nightmare as before. While someone lifts up a vial and says the color is wonderful, Blanc says everything is getting brighter and purer. The early experiments went wrong, he barely produced any color, and he even wasted the samples he got from Mary. So yeah, he's the one who stole her color. He says that's when he started thinking about late manifestations. If someone has the talent to awaken someday, wouldn't that potential be something you could absorb? And not just people. Now he can extract the future from creatures too. Things and people that had no value finally have a use. He believes what he's doing is noble. He's giving these people an identity and making use of them. And finally, after all that research, he managed to create the mixture. He wants to find out how many different places it can be used. Something interesting he learned recently is that creatures are drawn to colors, which means he can control them to a certain extent. Mary cuts off his whole 15-minute explanation, asking how he can talk so coldly without caring. He's putting living people into extractors just to benefit. The city would never accept this. Blanc says he expected that reaction, but he doesn't care if the city accepts it. His research is way ahead of its time. People just can't understand it yet. Mary tells him to shut up, calling him a murderer. If he loves colors so much and extracts them, why doesn't he extract the color from his own body? The color he has must be stained and disgusting. He looks startled for a second, then says no. He already checked his own color. Mary doesn't get it, and he explains, yes, he extracts his own body periodically. He created this thing, so of course he uses it. It's his life's work. He drained his own body and says he was the first one to test it. That's why he has such a wonderful color now, and he's preserving it carefully. Maybe one day he'll be able to use it perfectly. Mary says he's completely lost it, and he laughs, saying, fine, he'll just say everything. Does she know Kay came down to the underground city? She, confused, asks what he came here for. Blanc reveals that taking her to lure him in was the perfect choice. He always wondered why Kay followed her since back then, and it's a good thing he knew because she was the perfect bait to draw in this new discovery, and he can't wait for Kay to arrive. Mary tells him to let Kay go, and Blanc says, no chance. He needs to prepare to meet the guest, because Kay is going to be extremely useful. Then the whole place starts shaking. Blanc asks what that weird sound is, and suddenly the ceiling explodes. Everyone screams to run. People scatter, yelling that the place is collapsing. The protagonist drops right in front of Mary. She gets excited to see him, but the kid looks completely dark. Next chapter, we see someone panicking. There's a meeting with Camellia, and someone asks what that child is doing in that place. Another person reports that the child went down into the underground and is fighting Zed's gang. According to reports from some observers, he's attacking their branches to rescue a kidnapped friend. They demand Camellia explain herself right now. She's the one who said to trust the boy. And on top of that, they need to remember all their forces are up at the front of the entrance, because a bunch of monsters are showing up out of nowhere. It's been hard to get support from the pioneers, and now it's turned into this whole mess. Where's Red? What was he doing right now? Someone says the collector and that court jester showed up at another fortress, so he had to go over there to stop them. Someone starts talking about security, until another person goes, hey, easy, calm down. Then they tell Counselor Hudson to keep quiet. We're not gonna pick a fight with every underworld gang for no reason. That'll just make things worse. Yeah, one day we'll have to wipe them all out, but their strength isn't something to ignore. A lot of them are ex-pioneers. Some of them even used to be colorists. If this incident turns into some kind of war between the upper level and the lower level, we're screwed. The whole city will fall into chaos. And on top of that, right now, he doesn't trust the kid with the black color. He's been putting up with what the kid's been doing and watching him only because the council keeps asking for it. But over and over again, he just keeps causing trouble. So maybe this is the perfect chance to let that threat get taken out. That's an option on the table. Everyone goes quiet. Then someone answers that they know exactly what he's talking about. A man stands up and says no. He wants the peace forces to follow the plan they made. Kay on top of that was one of a kind and extremely important. He had to be protected. Celestia herself sees huge potential in him. They can't just let him die like that. The guy with glasses says he respected him, since he's on the council even with such a mediocre color. But he never imagined he'd be a filthy, irrational idiot. The other guy gets chewed out and apologizes, stammering that he'll try to meet expectations. Then the first guy starts to get up, saying this is a waste of time. Meanwhile, Camellia says he's worrying too much. For the counselor's own good, she'll help him a little. She'll send members of the Red Squad there with the peace forces. They're all excellent fighters who've already proven themselves on expeditions. The guy keeps staring and says she can do whatever she wants. It'd just be great if the city doesn't suffer at all because of it, and she'd better make sure everything's cleaned up in the end. Back to Kay's arrival. Mary's happy, and Blanc wants to know how he got there. Kay was already sure the situation had gotten kind of bad, but the protagonist is looking around. Mary's safety is the most important thing now, and he needs to finish them off first, before they can regroup. He activates the black arsenal and fires toward everyone. He could have aimed straight for the skull and killed them, but he's being careful hitting near the shoulder so they suffer, but don't die. At the same time, he's destroying a bunch of huge paint buckets. Then he rushes in, appears behind one of them, and lands a hard kick to the chin on two of them. Both drop unconscious. He ends up face to face with Mary. She thanks him, and he apologizes for being late. Did she have to wait long? Then Nero jumps and lands in her arms, and she's the one apologizing, saying she worried them both and thanking him for coming to help. But while they're talking, the rest of the team is escaping off to the side. Then someone says it's a shame, everyone's running away, and he had so many things he wanted to test. It's Blanc, saying it's fine, he can always find more people. Then he says, so Kay, been a while, I'm so excited. I was really happy to find out you awakened a unique color. You're truly a specimen. He can't wait to see how much the kid will shine once he's extracted. Kay looks over and says, Mary, who's this psycho? He looks familiar, but I've got no idea. Mary says that's Blanc, the bastard who tried to drain both of them. The protagonist thinks Blanc, wait, wasn't he the guy who got buried? Guess he survived. Blanc pulls out some vials and says, enough small talk. It's time for everyone to start the experiment. From a researcher to his test subjects. A gift. The ink splashes down by the protagonist's feet, and he doesn't really get it. Mary tells him to be careful, because that stuff attracts monsters. Blanc walks over to a lever and says he doesn't like getting his hands dirty with fighting. Those creatures might not kill Kay, but they'll definitely injure him. He pulls the device and says it's dinner time. The cage is open, and a bunch of beasts rush the protagonist. He immediately brings color into his hand, pulls out the weapon arsenal, and starts fighting everything. Explosions are going off everywhere. From the corner, Blanc grabs a dagger and says this kid has incredible research materials. Normally, power created by a color disappears, but if he can take this, it'll be perfect. He activates an extraction ability. The item breaks down and starts dripping into a vial. He's excited, saying he's always wanted to see what the color of darkness looks like, but this amount isn't enough. He wants to see what that power can really do. While the protagonist is fighting a swarm of creatures, Mary realizes the situation is bad. Normally, Kay would end this easily, but he can't keep the pace because he's already fought too much. He spent so much color that strands of his hair are already turning white. She needs some way to help him. That's when she sees ink on the floor and remembers the huge containers Kay smashed. She spots a machine, sees some tubes, and decides to try something. She starts hooking everything up, pulls out a tool from who knows where, and shocks it. She tells the protagonist not to touch the ground, and she sends electricity into the ink. The energy starts running through it. The creatures light up and they all get electrocuted. Next chapter, Blanc is furious that all his masterpieces died. Mary tells Kay this is their chance. The protagonist rushes in, absorbs everything and starts filling the glove again. Blanc freezes. That was the power of Black. It really was the most insane thing and the thing he's wanted most in his life. Those creatures were nothing but food to it. A truly insatiable hunger that didn't discriminate. It was the perfection he'd been looking for. Now he makes this sinister face and says the kid has to share some of that power with him. He wants to study that color to the fullest. Kay charges him, completely ignoring him, telling him to shut up. The blade clashes into Blanc's arm. Blanc says obstacles are part of research, but a direct fight like this won't work. His skill is in combat, which is why he always comes prepared with an emergency injection. 2 vials get injected into his arm and he starts transforming. Kay has to back off. Blanc says they have a lot in common. Both of them steal people's colors to get stronger. They're identical. He tells Kay to admit they're basically the same. Then he forms a sword in the palm of his hand and throws a green attack at the protagonist. Kay blocks and it turns into a straight-up exchange. Slashes fly everywhere. While Blanc tells Kay they might be fighting, but they could work together and it would be incredible. Why doesn't Kay come with him? Side by side, he'd help a lot with the research. Why doesn't he experience the full beauty of color and reach the essence? With Kay's absorption power combined with Blanc's extraction research, they can discover the truth of everything, the power he's always dreamed of, the pure original aura. He wants to know what Kay feels when he absorbs a color. He keeps attacking, saying he's jealous. Why won't Kay share just a drop? He jumps at him, demanding some ink. The attack looks like it lands right in the chest. Kay steps back, and when Blanc looks again, Kay was actually absorbing the blade. Blanc demands to know what that is. In the same instant, Kay forms the black fist and fires a bazooka-like blast into Blanc's chest, slamming him into the wall. Blanc coughs, saying he doesn't fully understand it, but the kid is incredible. He never imagined you could absorb a color mid-fight like that. The kid is unbeatable. No matter what he does, Kay will just absorb it. Even if their abilities are similar, the difference is massive. Blanc pulls out a vial of black ink and says, unfortunately, he'll have to use this. Kay, seeing it, asks, what are you planning to do? Tired of being alive? Blanc says no. He feels great. This is just to collect more information for research. And besides, this item was made specifically for him. He never wanted to use the first extraction of the black color on someone else. Sure, he might die, but that just makes it more interesting. Black energy starts appearing under his feet and he says it's working. But with that happy villain grin, you can tell it's bad news for the kid. His eye starts getting taken over by ink and he says it's unbelievable. This color has so much power. He actually manages to form an arm of black ink. He tells Kay to stay sharp because now he's going all out. He jumps in to punch. Kay throws one back. It turns into a clean, brutal brawl, just black arms colliding. Blanc keeps talking, saying it's unbelievable. Now that he's experienced it, it's crystal clear. Kay really should work with him. This meeting was destiny and all that. Kay tells him to shut up and fight. Kay says he's not the kind of person Blanc is, but Blanc just laughs and asks what he's talking about. They have so much in common. Maybe Kay's refusing because of Mary, or because he doesn't have an identity of his own. Every time he absorbs other people's colors, he's still the same parasite. Blanc says he can see it clearly. In the end, Kay is empty. And Kay shouldn't misunderstand. He's not criticizing him. He actually likes it. Spending his whole life without any color, Kay must have been dying of envy. That's how his transformation happened. In the end, he's just someone trying to reach his goals like everyone else. He tells Kay that's an extremely human feeling, and he thinks it's amazing, because very few people accept who their original self is. Then a spinning tool comes flying in, smack, hits Blanc in the head. He looks back. It's Mary yelling that she's out of patience, telling him to shut up, acting like he knows anything about Kay. He didn't even see what Kay was like as a kid. Kay has always been the same. While Blanc is a weird, crazy doctor, trash, and Kay wasn't copying anyone. He's different from other people, but he's still just a normal human. She keeps throwing stuff, telling Blanc to shut up, telling him to stop looking down on Kay, calling him a damn psychopath. The protagonist gives a small smile, and Blanc looks confused, because the kid tightens that aura. Blanc can only think the kid's power is incredible, able to ramp up even more than he expected. The protagonist thanks Mary, then he charges again and fires another bazooka blast straight into Blanc's chest. This time Blanc's whole arm twists. He realizes his body can't handle all that power. He looks up, thinking something about Kay, but before we find out what, he gets completely blasted into the ground, barely hanging on. He says the kid is fabulous. Kay just stands there quiet when Mary runs over asking if he's okay. He says he is. Looking at Blanc, Kay says the guy's barely alive, but it's time to finish this. He pulls out the dagger, saying he can't leave loose ends. But you already know that when someone hesitates like that, the other guy's definitely getting out alive. Blanc coughs and struggles, saying the imperfect power he has wasn't enough to defeat Kay. He wanted so badly to learn more about this color, but Kay should know he hasn't given up. If it's to obtain Kay's color, he'll do anything. Suddenly, the whole place starts exploding. Blanc explains there are ink charges all over the room. They've always made a huge mess down there, so they knew the bill would come due someday. That's why they have a system to erase the evidence. Before the protagonist can say anything, the floor under him explodes too. He falls into a hole, calls out for Nero, and ends up plunging into a massive bucket of ink. He wonders why something like that would be in the underground. Looks like it's everything that accumulated from the extraction room. but then he sees Mary beside him. She's there, her eye already starting to go dark, calling for Kay, and he tells her not to let it happen. She's being swallowed by darkness. The protagonist starts moving, swimming toward her, thinking the only solution is to absorb all of it. The problem is there's too much ink. She'll die before that's possible. He needs to touch her somehow. Then a voice says he needs to remember when someone falls into black ink, there's no saving them. It starts asking questions. Why he got this color? If it wasn't because of that beautiful light, if he'll be okay with all of this. He doesn't understand any of it, but he sees himself there in some glowing version of himself. Suddenly he says no. Once was more than enough. He's never giving up on Mary. Flashbacks start hitting while he keeps swimming toward her. He walks up and starts absorbing everything around the two of them. In the middle of all that drama, he says, "You were the only one who told me I'd become a colorist. The one who believes everyone has their own color and light inside them." But the colored voice keeps talking, telling him he just has to obey. While that's happening, the protagonist starts remembering when they went down to the underground city, the place where discrimination and persecution were even worse. At the same time, it was where he saw Mary's talent. No matter where they were, she could light the place up. She even built her little shop, and he says that if he'd been alone his whole life, he never would have noticed any of that. He would have stayed stuck forever, completely empty, not even knowing what happiness was, but now he understands a little. He knows Lumiel gave him a path to follow through her, and she gave him a reason to keep going. Albino smiles, and we're back to him begging her to wake up, telling her to remember that promise. Suddenly, everything finally gets absorbed, and she drops to the ground. But the protagonist notices she isn't breathing. Then he sees that same aura around her again, that inner energy they talked about. He wonders what happens if he removes that light. It doesn't really make sense, but he grabs her hand and says he has to do whatever it takes to save her. Then, as he starts absorbing it, he says it feels totally different. When he absorbs a color, it feels weird. But this light was coming from inside Mary. He starts feeling fun, happiness, warmth, life, and he thinks only Mary could shine like that. All of a sudden, her hair turns completely blonde, and then she opens her eyes, startled and confused. The protagonist calls out to her, saying he's happy she woke up, while she tries to figure out what happened. She says she fell into a bucket of black paint. Then she looks at her own arm and sees her skin looks more natural. Her hair is bright yellow, and she asks what happened, why she suddenly has color. He tells her to calm down and asks if she feels okay. If anything feels wrong, she says no, she feels strangely fine. He says good, and that the most important thing right now is getting out of there. Even if the explosives block the upper area, there has to be a way out. The guy wasn't going to trap himself down here forever. Then the ceiling above them explodes and Nero shows up saying hi. Mary calls out to him and the guy says he heard it was an emergency, but it looks like everyone's safe. With him there, he wants to know what they're doing. They were supposed to come right away. The next chapter starts with the protagonist wondering when his memories first began. He isn't sure, because his mind felt wrapped in fog and everything seemed blurry and far away. Even the boundary between him and the world felt thin. He wandered aimlessly, and he could only see anything when the fog cleared and his vision sharpened, and he always woke up in some unknown place. But things were fine there. He never really cared, because no matter where he woke up, he had family with him. Nero, the only one who was always by his side, until one day in that deep darkness, someone with a dazzling radiance appeared and introduced himself as Lumiel, and the protagonist instantly knew that person was the light he'd been searching for. Lumiel left a vivid mark on the protagonist's heart, but the time they spent together wasn't long, and as soon as Lumiel left, the protagonist went back to wandering again, searching once more for that same light. Now he wonders if he'll ever run into that glow again. Suddenly someone is calling him, and when he opens his eyes, Mary is right in front of him. That's how he met her. She's asking what happened. He'd just been staring. He couldn't speak or hear. The boy stays silent, pale, and she says, well, kids like this are common in the underground city, but he should be careful with this rain. We should get out of here before he gets sick. Looks like an old pipe in the ceiling burst, and the city's full of paint residue. Then she notices the boy is holding a little creature, and asks how he has something like that in his arms. Still, it looks tiny, so maybe it's fine. She starts pushing him along, saying, we should get out of here. But then two guys spot them hiding and walk over, calling out, asking how those bastards have the nerve to leave the designated area. Looks like they wanted to get beaten until they learned their lesson. One of them looks at Mary and says he found the perfect test subject for something they want to try. The scene switches to the underground facility, with Blanc saying this won't work. His samples can't just wander wherever they want. How's the monitoring? The guy at the door apologizes, saying it was an accident, until Blanc sees Mary and asks why she always escapes. She really doesn't give up, even if she's a precious sample. There's a limit to their patience. At this rate, things are going to get difficult. She knows what he means. Kay is standing there quietly, just listening. On the surface, it was considered a normal orphanage, but obviously the truth was that it was children being held captive. They hid behind that city's poverty to put the kids to work everywhere as cheap labor. But the worst part wasn't even the labor exploitation. The real focus was human experimentation. Security was tight, and the only way out was in a body bag. But Mary had no intention of dying there. Long before they got close to escaping, she was already working to get out with the other kids, and she never gave up, even after failing countless times. With that unbreakable spirit, she gave everyone hope and became the one people leaned on. We see the two of them unscrewing a duct, taking a look, and she says that's it. The exit is right up ahead. In 3 days, when the guards leave, everyone's getting out. She thanks him, saying she managed to finish everything thanks to him. She gives a small smile, and the protagonist gives a weak little smile back. and he says that was the day he started to like her. Then we see everyone gathered in a yard, kids asking if it's true, and she says yes, but nobody can get caught, so they need to stay quiet. It's the last night they'll spend there. Later, off to the side, she tells the protagonist she wants to go to the Shining City and open her own workshop. She heard even albinos can get jobs there. For now, she'd have to live in the towns around the wall, but it was still 100 times better than the underground. And Kay, what does he want to do when he gets out? He's looking down, but then he says he'd like to be a colorist, because the person he saw was one. Mary is surprised when she hears that it's the first time she's ever seen Kay want something. Then he says he knows it's an impossible dream. He knows how powerless and weak albinos are. All the adults say the same thing. He only ended up in that place because he was searching for that light. But now that he's there, he doesn't even know what he's supposed to do or where he's supposed to go. That's why, even though everyone is excited to leave, he can't really understand the happiness. Mary laughs and says he might not know this, but Lumiel used to be colorless too. The protagonist asks if that's true. She says yes, and even so, Lumiel shined brighter than anyone. That's why she believes every person really does have a light inside them. Kay must have one too, even if he doesn't know it yet. Little by little, he can figure it out. And now that she knows his dream, she'll be cheering for him and helping him as much as she can. Kay asks if she really thinks he can do it. She just says what matters is trying. As long as he doesn't give up, he hasn't failed. Just focus on what you need to do. And she tells him to smile more, because that sad face isn't helping. So he makes this cute forced smile, and the protagonist says that back then they were full of hope, but cruel reality didn't give them a good tomorrow. Then we see all the kids getting beaten and shoved into those extraction booths, with Mary cornered along with the protagonist. Their resistance was nothing more than a pointless struggle. Mary tells Kay to get away, but one of the men just calls her a brat and smacks her on the head. She collapses, wrecked, and tells Kay to run. And that's when the boy already had that black color, because he's standing there frozen, trying to understand why it feels like something is about to explode inside him. He's feeling some kind of rage. He gets hit in the head and falls to the ground. Someone says, well, that was the last one, right? But why are we getting rid of everyone? Are you sure it's okay to do this without Lord Blanc's permission? The other answers, no idea, just do what we were told. They said this lab got exposed and we need to get rid of the evidence, something like that. The first guy complains, man, having to do all the dirty work sucks. And then the final boss stands up with a black aura behind him. The guys turn around terrified, asking what that is. And then three eyes like some creepy cosmic demon thing. He stretches out his hand and boom, the whole place explodes. Next chapter, the entire place has collapsed. Someone is slapping Kay's face, telling him to open his eyes. It's Mary, relieved that he finally woke up. He asks what happened, and she says she doesn't know either. She just woke up too. But it looks like there was a massive explosion. And when she got up, everything was like this. Nobody besides the two of them escaped. Everyone else is dead. She cries, saying those kids were so kind. Meanwhile, the protagonist is more worried about the shouting coming from deeper inside, telling Mary people are coming, and he tells her they need to get out. If they get caught again, they're done. She grabs his arm and says they have to go to the surface. They can't survive down here. The plan is to live up there and be as happy as possible. For their brothers and sisters, they have to keep carrying their wishes forward. So they head toward the light and we're back in the present, with her helping him climb out of the hole. Gale says he never imagined he'd see the bottom of the underground city. So what the hell is going on down there? And wasn't this girl an albino? Why is she suddenly blonde? Then Ellie comes over, touching her hair, saying, wow, she awakened just like Kay did, and her color is so vivid. That kind of saturation is rare, even among the three great families. Most nobles in the city don't shine as much as she does. She's amazing. The protagonist says they don't have time for flirting. There are still leftover gangs around, so it's dangerous. They should start moving. They walk off and the two of them are still kind of confused. Gale comments that Kay's body feels different than normal. Something's off, but Mary just says they should leave anyway, especially since the rest of the trash already got cleaned up. They killed everyone. Mary is shocked. They wiped them all out. Gale says they should be thanking him. He had to burn through a ton of ink. It was a huge number of gang members, all buried under rubble, and it was a massive job. Still, they shouldn't let their guard down, because someone could still be alive. As they keep going, a guy pulls a small knife from behind Mary with this nasty grin, saying those bastards aren't getting away after leaving them like this. If he goes back like this, they'll cut his arm off, so he's taking one of them with him. He jumps to stab Mary in the back, but now that she's awakened, she throws a reflex punch and the guy slams into the wall and dies. The protagonist is stunned, and he says, well, no need to worry anymore. She really did get strong because of the color. Mary is shaken. She never knew colors were that powerful. She barely even punched. Then people up in the hole start yelling, I'm hearing something down here, and everyone comes running. A group shows up, lots of armed people. It's security forces telling everyone to stay still and not move. But when they see who it is, they recognize the pioneers and say, well, at least everyone's safe. An older man comes over thanking Ellie for the help, and she says she just did what nobody else was going to do. They look a little awkward, saying they came right after. But it's incredible they didn't even need to step in. Now they'll do their part, and they start arresting everyone who's down. Mary says, okay, let's go up already. We've been down here a long time. She's relieved that in the end, everything worked out. But then out of nowhere, Ellie stops and calls the protagonist over, saying his aura feels different than usual. What happened? He just stands there kind of quiet, puts a hand to his face and says it was probably a bit unpleasant. He made them worry. but it's fine. He just had to think about a lot of things for a moment. It's nothing serious, so they don't need to make a big deal out of it. Ellie's about to speak again, but Gaia tells her to shut it. That's one of those past things you don't want to tell other people, so there's no point pushing until he talks. Ellie says she gets it and goes, alright then, let's head back to the surface. But of course Blanc didn't die. You can see his blood on the floor as he drags himself through the base, saying he only got away by luck, but his body's pretty wrecked. He's slumped against a wall, wondering if this is really the end for him. It'd be a sad way to go, because he wanted to see Kay's true form someday. He's basically about to give up when he hears a strange sound, and then look who's right in front of him. Viper. In the blink of an eye, she's right there beside him. When he looks up, she says hi and asks if he forgot the promise they made. How is she supposed to accept him in this pathetic state? She's been hiding out down in this underground place, and her business partner never even shows up. And now that she finally finds him, he's dying like trash in some hole. She tells him to hand over what he owes, but then realizes he isn't even responding. Did the bastard die? She says she didn't want to have to use this on a mere human again, but she doesn't have a choice. Even a deadly poison can turn into medicine if you use it the right way. Next chapter, we see Viper approaching the sword demon, and that emo-looking mini version of her asks why she took so long. Next time she's coming along, Viper tells her to get off her back. She's got too many problems to deal with, too many unexpected setbacks. The sword demon comments that she's seriously late. Did she bring what they wanted? She says yes, the item that attracts creatures. She calls it a seed or something like that. Either way, she managed to bring way more than she expected, and maybe her profits are about to go up even more. So with that, all the preparations are done. It's time to start. She jumps up, climbing onto the 19-tailed fox. The sword demon asks if she really thinks this is going to work on a creature that huge. Big monsters like that only move according to the witch's will. He teamed up with her because he thought she had a more interesting plan. But what if the thing goes berserk and starts attacking everything around it? They'll be the ones who get caught in it. Viper says he's way too suspicious. With the witch asleep, the power controlling them has weakened. That makes these creatures' instincts sharper, and if he doesn't believe her, he can watch for himself. She throws the vial onto the creature's head and says if it wants more colors, it'll have to obey. The beast starts thrashing, whipping its tails everywhere, while Viper laughs and says that's exactly what she wants. It's time to smash that cursed city to pieces. Meanwhile, in the city itself, someone's asking what all the commotion is. Others say it's the gangs again, causing trouble like always. And if the pioneers were there, they must have gone hard. Then the guy thanks the protagonist, saying all the people who got taken down are already under escort. There's nothing left to worry about, until suddenly someone shows up with a hand in their pocket, saying something urgent came up, so they ran over. But apparently there was no reason to rush. It's Red arriving, and everyone's like, no way. It's Red the legend. The protagonist calls for the boss, who immediately wants to know what the hell Kay has gotten himself into this time. It's rare for him to be surprised, but this one caught him off guard. He looks over and says, hold on, isn't that your friend Mary? Why is your albino friend glowing like that now? Another person awakening right after Kay. Yeah, they should probably get out of there, because there are way too many people watching. Then it cuts to Camellia laughing, calling Red an old man. Again, he brought her something she loves. An awakened girl with gorgeous hair. She walks up and asks if the girl is Mary. Mary confirms, and Red asks the captain what she thinks of her. Since Luminel awaken, this is one of the rarest phenomena in the city. When a color manifests in someone colorless, they usually have the potential to leave a mark on history, like that genius engineer who made Kay's weapon. Camellia is playing with Mary's hair, saying, wow, this is amazing. You're such a beautiful girl, and your color is so beautiful. Do you want to join my group, the Dawn Corps? We'll give you anything you want. This world really judges people, huh? The moment you've got colored hair, everyone treats you well. Mary hasn't even answered yet, and Camelia's already telling her to think carefully, swearing she'll treat her 2 or 3 times better than anywhere else. Mary doesn't know what to say, while the protagonist watches. Then she says yes. She wants to join the Dawn Corps. She also has something she wants to achieve as a pioneer. Camellia says that's a great answer, and that all she has to do now is sign the document, until a blonde guy shows up and tells them to wait. He says he was outside, and he's against accepting this girl so easily. There's a test everyone has to pass before becoming part of this. The scene switches to an arena, with Camellia complaining that the guy is unbelievably stubborn. Mary is awakened. If someone else took her, Camellia would be furious. She tells the old guy to answer, but he's just staring at Mary, asking if she's ready. He looks at her weapon, and she says she is. He says the test is simple. She has to defeat the test golem prepared by the team. The golem's combat power is the minimum standard to become a member of the Dawn Corps. If she can't handle that, then she has no right to set foot on the Black Earth. Mary looks nervous, asking if she really has to beat a monster that big. He says it's already unusual. They're testing her without scheduling, but this is the minimum needed for other people to accept her. She might be an engineer who isn't used to fighting, but if the color she carries is real, then this should be easy. So she's face to face with the golem. The guy tells them to start, and the creature charges in to smack her. Mary dodges, terrified, and the thing keeps swinging while she backs up. Camellia tells him to stop scaring the girl. If she leaves their organization because of this, Camellia will be furious. Mary, meanwhile, is thinking, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to beat something like this? But she decides she has to at least test the strength of her color. Running won't solve anything. She aims the big pistol, saying she'll pour all her color into it if that's what it takes. The golem comes in for a crushing hug, and she pulls the trigger. The pistol starts glowing gold, and boom, it punches straight through the creature. A laser tears through it, pierces the ceiling, pierces the sky, and everyone just stands there with their mouths open. The protagonist is like, what was that? Even when he awakened, he didn't have power that ridiculous. Even the human running the test is impressed. It's the first time she's used a weapon like that, and she already matched his level of strength. Her potential is huge. The problem is she can't control the output. She's yelling for help, saying she doesn't know how to stop. The beams are blasting everywhere, and people are shouting to take cover. She begs someone to help. She can't stop it. Someone nearby tells her to calm down. She's the one who has the power to control it. Next chapter, they had to gather a ton of materials, and it's all up in the ceiling. Down below, people are talking while Mary says she'll try to make up for it somehow. But Camellia walks up, holds her face, and says she's a wonderful jewel. She's incredible. Her power completely blew past the standards. And with that, she welcomes her to the Dawn Corps. Seeing so many new talents gathered like this is reassuring. She can't wait to see what all of them will accomplish. Then she turns to the old guy and asks if he still has any objections. He says he never had objections, he just needed a more solid justification to admit the girl. But her power really was incredible. In terms of total color output, she might be the best of this generation. And now Camellia should go back to being professional and stop calling him old man. Camellia tells him to stop being so stiff and cold, and then tells Mary to come with her, because they have a lot to talk about and get to know each other. Watching all this, the protagonist thinks that he was worried about the sudden test, but it all worked out. Then Red calls them over and says that's enough of the welcome party. Are they busy today? The protagonist says no, and Red says perfect. He's been busy, but he finally set aside a day to give them some attention. So come with him because he has something important to show them. And here we go, more training. They're at the training field. Red says nobody's watching there, so it's the perfect place to go all out. They even have super realistic training dummies, modeled after shellback creatures, so most attacks can't even scratch them. He tells everyone to watch closely what he's about to do. He draws his sword and says this is a technique they'll have to learn if they want to survive in the Black Lands. He strikes the dummy's shell. Nothing happens. He says it doesn't matter how strong your exploit is. It isn't all powerful. Sooner or later, your blade hits a limit. Out there, it's normal to run into creatures that take no damage at all, and others that regenerate endlessly. So how do you deal with that? That's when his blade starts turning red, and he activates Chroma Manifestation. Ellie asks if it's what she thinks it is. He says yes, it's the same technique he used against the sword demon, the power called Chroma. You draw out the latent color inside your body by saturating your soul, and you use it to shine with different forms and effects. The moment you apply that kind of color coding, you gain overwhelming strength that doesn't compare to your normal state, and then things that used to be uncuttable become easy. His blade slices through the training dummy like paper, and he says that's what they need to start polishing. Each of them needs at least one trump card because you never know what'll happen in that place. Ellie is stunned. He barely even swung properly, and the thing got shredded. Kay asks if they need to learn that to become a colorist. Red says that's the basics. Once they reach the higher levels of A rank, they'll see tons of people using it. And to move up to S rank, you need multiple techniques. Only then are you recognized as a true colorist. He tells them to grab their weapons and get into position, because now he's going to teach them how to train Chroma. It's basically an extension of skills they already have. They should remember the feeling of using an ability with all their color expanding. Chroma is different. Instead of letting the ability do whatever it wants, you guide it from your body into your weapon, while pushing your color production to the limit. It's not easy, but it's simple in theory. He tells them to try. Gale and Ellie start focusing, and Red tells them they need to pull way more energy. Even if they turn pale and their hair goes white, they have to give it everything. They strain hard. Gale's head is already turning kind of gray, and Ellie's hair too. Both of them can feel their color draining away. Red says, yeah, you're gonna realize this isn't easy. For you three, this is a great start. Some people take years just to understand the feeling. Obviously, Kay is going to do something else, because so far we haven't seen him do anything. Red says it has huge power, but it also demands relentless effort. He tells them to keep training, but then a dark energy passes through. Everyone looks over and sees the protagonist with his usual technique activated, Chroma fully concentrated in his hand. Kay says he's been using that power for a while now, but he just found out it's called Chroma. Ellie remembers, yeah, that's the technique he used with his hand to destroy the creature in the ruins. Red stares shocked and says it's actually really fun teaching the kid. He learns fast, but he remembers the protagonist fully transformed, and figures that for him, this first step really was easy. Still, he explains that what the kid is doing is basically just cramming a ridiculous amount of color into the same limb. Basically, he was making it happen through brute force. The protagonist doesn't get it, and Red explains that he's putting in so much color that in 3 or 4 hits he's going to end up albino. The protagonist says it's actually true. He always feels like he burns through way too much color, and the teacher noticed this kid's living in a kind of crazy way. He spends all his color and then absorbs again as fast as possible. So he decides to run another test and tells the two of them to keep testing until their chromas manifest. If they don't want to be stuck behind K forever, they better work hard. Then he tells the protagonist there's something way more urgent than Chroma. Depending on the situation they end up in, he could be in much worse shape than Gale or Ellie. He orders him not to use that exploit, and the protagonist asks why not. Because the kid needs to train the absolute basics, learn to use his own color efficiently. He's spending 100 units of power when 10 would do. The power might look amazing, But as fights drag on, it turns into a double-edged sword. Running out of energy and color in the middle of a battle is insanely dangerous. He understands the kid's acting on instinct, but he's doing it with zero control. The way he relies only on absorption in fights is really risky. And if he goes full albino surrounded by creatures, it's over. The protagonist says, yeah, he knows he's kind of in danger, but what's he supposed to do now? Red tells him to start releasing every drop of power he can. He says okay, and starts expanding his aura. The teacher freaks out, saying it's unbelievable. Since the last time he saw the kid, he's gotten way stronger. And Kay is over there completely wrecked. Doing all that summoning without the weapon he's used to is way too hard. But Red tells him to keep pushing. If he weakens even a little, he's going to get beaten down. The protagonist is getting exhausted, and Red says it's embarrassing. How does he want to be a colorist if he can't even handle this? Where's the kid's determination? He gets mad, and after a while, everyone's exhausted, collapsed on the ground, chugging a bunch of potions. They ask if they really have to do this every day. They've lost count of how many inks they drank. The teacher says, well, for the first day it's fine. Let's call it. Everyone leaves totally wiped, with Gale saying he just wants to sleep. Then Red goes, wait, where do you think you're going? Get back here, we're done with ink training, but where are you headed? The real training starts now. Nobody's skipping combat training because that's the most important part. And he tells everyone to come at him like their lives depend on it. Kay is the first to complain, saying there's no way they can win now that they're exhausted. Gale starts to say something too, but Red cuts him off, saying it's ridiculous. They thought training would end with just chroma practice. They have very little experience compared to the talent they have, so this is what matters most. And he warns them they'd better get ready, because he's not going easy. Right then, everyone draws their swords, and Red walks up, telling them to imagine he's one of the Black Hands. They're supposed to go in trying to finish him in a single hit, but in the same instant, he's already behind Ellie about to strike, and she manages to raise a barrier. Red praises her reaction time. She really can create something dense in a fraction of a second. Then it turns into a brawl, with the protagonist and Gale coming in from behind, but the green one is in shock. The three of them are putting on all the pressure they can, and they're not even scratching him. That's when they realize Red has been blocking without even using color power, just pure physical skill. The three of them rush at the same time. Gale activates his technique, coming in from the side with multiple swords. The protagonist comes from the other side with another sword and an axe in hand, but Red keeps defending. Ellie can't understand how it's possible. Her ice is getting shattered. Red says her attack is solid, but it's still way too easy to pierce. She'll have to train her chroma to the limit so that doesn't happen. And even if she has a good balance between offense and defense, that doesn't mean she has no weaknesses. He slips out of everything, stops right in front of the protagonist, and says he won't repeat himself. He's using his abilities relying only on force. Apparently, he can't feel the difference between anything. Considering he barely escaped because of the item Mary made, he'd already be dead if it weren't for her. He really needs to fix his endurance urgently. Not long after, the three of them are down on their knees. Red says, all right, now that's enough training, though not before tearing into Gale, saying his impatience is ridiculous and his movements are way too predictable. It's the dumbest thing to spend all his color until he's washed out, an albino in a single attack. Then we see what actually happened. Gale went off beating on Ellie, slashing at Gale, who couldn't understand how any of this was possible. He activated a spiral slash and sent it straight at him, but Red just flicked something on his sword and redirected it to the other side. Gale remembers someone saying it wasn't enough. He sees images of someone stepping in front of him and he starts saying he can't keep going like this. He has to become the strongest and the fastest. Then we see the protagonist activating power in his golden hand too, saying it'd be a shame to end it there. He can't control his power, but he's going to give it everything he's got. We see an energy that looks like the same one from Mary running across his chest, and he says he'd been hesitating to use it. At that moment, Red sees the black and gold glow coming right at his face, and outside everything explodes. The protagonist is completely albino. His energy is at zero. The kid looks scrawny, like he got drained dry. Next to Red, there's a smashed up crater. Gale and Ellie stare, kind of scared, wanting to know how he made that. It looked like he added another color into the black. Red looks a bit awkward, saying he's going to have to be careful not to embarrass himself as a teacher. Meanwhile, Kay, off to the side, is being a total idiot. He keeps staring at the sword, saying the kid really surprised him. But then he picks him up, saying, great, now the whole base is wrecked, and Camellia is definitely going to lose it. The scene cuts to Camellia and Dear Mary calmly having tea. Camellia tells Mary the items they found for her are incredible. Like seriously, this item she equipped is from the 21st century, called a bra, and the girl is asking if she can really accept all of this. Then suddenly a guy bursts into the room saying there's an emergency. There was something extremely terrifying outside. Camellia is confused, and the two of them run outside. She reaches out her hand and sees black ashes spreading. From far away you can see a huge cloud of smoke. Already alarmed, Camellia says, this is the same event that destroyed the city in the past, known as the Black Wave. Obviously it's that disaster Viper's doing. On the front lines, everyone's grabbing papers, anything they can, trying to flee. Everyone's asking why they're suddenly being attacked, and the scale of it doesn't even make sense. Now it's clear why even the old Radiant civilization got wiped out. There's a bunch of stuff exploding behind them, but in the distance, along the front of the walls, people are working ink cannons, yelling to reload again because they have to stop it. The scene switches to Gale, telling the other two to stop staring out the window. They're gonna have to take part in this too. Right away, Red opens the door and tells everyone to grab their gear. Unfortunately, it's not the best time, but they can't just sit around. The red team has to move out. Ellie, looking out the window, says those black ashes are exactly like the ones from that day. She has a flashback, looking up. Then we see a loudspeaker warning everyone in the city to start preparing. The pioneers need to help on the front line, and everyone else has to hide. People are trying to run, but there are explosions going off behind them. On the front line, when they look back, there are these final boss-looking things in multiple colors coming in. The protagonist group is outside now, next to that orange-haired guy, and he says, now that their team has arrived, not a single creature will get close to the city. Gale is standing there wanting to know who this show-off is, and the protagonist says it's the people from the east. Since it's an emergency, everyone has to work together. Everyone else keeps retreating into the city while the monsters advance. One soldier is about to shoot when an attack comes flying in, but the protagonist cuts through it, and both teams charge forward. The front line is getting destroyed while the city side keeps falling back. They fire shots, taking down some creatures, but the whole army is coming. Then the colorists arrive. Camellia says that as captain of the pioneers, she's taking command over everyone. She warns the protagonist team and the others to get ready, because what's coming is a major invasion. A Black Hand group heading toward the forward base. The protagonist remembers, it's the same team as the Sword Demon. Then that red-haired guy shows up, and thanks all the juniors for being there. He says they'll take over from here, and Camellia tells them to be careful defending this region. They'll have to split up into their assigned positions. We see the red-haired guy blowing up a bunch of creatures up front, and the protagonist and Gale are impressed. But that pose of 19 keeps advancing. People are kind of scared, but Camellia tells them to hold their positions, and everyone charges in. Among the creatures is the Black Sword, saying he can see that boy, the key to opening all the curtains. This time he won't escape. We see Camellia asking Red for help. She's sure someone will be watching Kay, so she needs Red to protect him. Meanwhile, from above, Viper watches everything, saying this attack is more effective than she expected. It's unbelievable she can move dozens and dozens of creatures with just a few vials. She's feeling like the real Black Witch. Camellia gives the group their final orders, explains the formation, and tells them to advance. The red-haired kid, whose name I still don't know, goes first, saying he'll lead the vanguard. Meanwhile, the protagonist is wondering where's Mary. He's glad she's not around, but he has no idea she's already there inside a cannon, starting to fix everything, saying she needs likes on this video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers. Activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.